So, you can probably guess, Esther and I are just here for the fun of it, so anything meaningful is going to happen today is going to be between you guys and Abraham. Would you invite Esther and her friends up, please?
Hello. Goodbye. This is going to be fun. Good morning.
Good morning.
We are extremely pleased that you are here. It is good to come together for the purpose of co-creating. Do you agree?
Yes.
Co-creating at its best, really. You're knowing what you're wanting?
Yes.
Sort of, kind of. You are appreciating the contrast that surrounds you. Well, we're glad that you are appreciating the contrast that surrounds you, because it helps you to focus, doesn't it? The contrast helps you to choose. The contrast helps you to focus your desire into sharper and sharper, more poignant, more precise, more pleasing to you perspective. The less variety you have, the fewer your choices. The more variety you have, the more your choices. And it is the primary reason that we visit with you, because if you are behaving as most of your physical friends, with a great deal of variety, you see a great deal of what you do not want. And you've tried to control the part that you don't want, only to discover that you can't. And so then you begin to sort of section your life off by moving into the community that most pleases you, or traveling only in the places that most please you. You tend to limit your scope of life in order to limit the negative things that might be there, sort of backing yourself into a more and more narrow corner as life goes on. When you are little, you are not afraid of anything, and you're willing to explore, and the adventure is wonderful. But if you have parents who are guarded, or if you yourself have moved through time and have become more guarded, then if you're like most people, you are attempting a very impossible thing. You're trying to limit the scope of your life in order to cut out the things you do not want. And the thing about that is so screwy is that when you limit contrast, of course you may limit some of what you don't want, but you limit the things that you do want too. If instead of trying to control circumstances or events, instead of trying to handle your world through action, if you could become keenly aware of your vibrational output, which equals your point of attraction, if you could control the only thing that you ever can control, and the only thing that you ever really, from your broader perspective, want to control, if you can control your vibrational output, then you will control what comes to you no matter what environment you're standing in. Can you feel the advantage of that? Then nothing's off limits to you. No one, no place, none of it's off limits. And yet you cannot run the risk of getting stuff you don't want, because you're not tuned to the stuff you don't want. You're tuned to the stuff you do want. You sort of kind of get it? Yes. Esther was laughing the other day, talking about a co-creation that they had started and then they sort of bailed out on. And she said, it's really interesting to me to notice that if my vibration was where I want it to be, those people would not have had access to us at all. In other words, it's easy to stand and say, oh, you are inappropriate to my experience and you don't fit with what I want. But we want you to understand whether that experience fits with what you want or not, it fits with who you are. Esther said, when I clean up my vibration, a lot of the people I know won't come round. In other words, when you're really in sync with who you really are, in other words, a sloppy electrician can't come to you when you're in vibrational harmony with what you want. You see what we're getting at? So, in this gathering, it is our desire to remind you of some things that you may have forgotten. We want you to remember that you are, first and foremost, vibration, that you are source energy. And that while you are magnificently focused in these physical bodies, and we get it that this physical world is a big deal to you. Well, it is to us too. It's the leading manifestational evidence of vibration. It's a big deal. Manifestations matter. But we think it is far more satisfying and important for you to remember your vibrational countenance, because when you remember that you are vibrational beings first and foremost, of course, you see all of this that surrounds you. You hear it, you smell it, you taste it, you touch it. It's tactile, it's real, it's reality. But if you could just step back a little bit from this manifested reality and be more aware of the vibrational state of being that is responsible for the reality that's manifesting, and put your emphasis on the vibrational part rather than the manifested physical part, you will gain huge control back. So here's how it works. You were source energy before you came into this body. Many of you realize that. You look around this magnificent time-space reality, and as brilliant as you are, you know that you are not capable, even the smartest among you, to scrape enough dirt together to launch another Earth into orbit. In other words, you get it that there's something bigger going on than what you're doing here with your action here in this physical realm. You just cannot explain it without acknowledging that there is something more to the story. And as religionists, you have come up with quite a few stories that are interesting. And there are some who will listen to us here today who will say, oh, just another story. And we acknowledge that, because to explain the non-physical power and energy and purpose and love in physical terms, to try to narrow the scope of the bigness of all of that into something that you can get your thoughts around here in this physical form, it requires some specifics, and it requires an understanding of the basic laws of the universe, and that's what we want to impart to you here today. We want you to understand that what you see in your physical manifestation is an extension of a vibrational basis, and that vibrational basis is eternal. You came forth into this body from that basis, and even though you came from that non-physical state of being, which some call source, some call God, some call heaven, from that vibrational state of being, even though you're here in this body, that vibrational basis still remains as that vibrational basis. So humans often refer to that part as their soul. We call it your vibrational basis, the source of that which you are. And that source of that which you are, that vibrational source of that which you are, that is the you that is in the state of becoming. In other words, you are eternal beings, and you in this physical body assist that eternal part of you in the becoming. But this physical you is not the whole you of you. It's a part of you. It's an important part of you. It's a leading edge part of you. It's a leading edge, creative, genius part of you who has come forth deliberately to focus in the variety of this leading edge time-space environment in order for you in your physical beingness to come to new conclusions constantly about what would be better for you. Even if you are one-celled organism, that is true. So here you are, physically focused, exploring contrast, and all day, every day, deciding what would be better, what would be better, what would be better, what would be more, what would feel better, what would be better. And the source, the non-physical part of you, who remains always non-physically focused, hears every request that you offer. So when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. Whether you're speaking words to it or not, you cannot stop the deciphering process of giving birth to improved preferences. You just can't do it. And the evolution of all species is about that. So this preference moves forward like a rocket of desire. And the source within you receives the rocket, and more than receives it, becomes it, adds this new request to the requests of positive becoming that you've been setting forth, and literally holds that vibrational place for you. Now, many humans never catch up with that vibrational place as long as they are still focused in their physical body. Because a very strange thing happens with so many of you. When you really know what you do not want, you send forth an equal and equivalent request for what it is you do want. In other words, that's that balance of the universe. But so often, even though you've set forth a rocket, sometimes you even put brief words to it. Want that? Ooh, it peters away quickly. Really want that? Really want that? Really want him? Really want her? Really want that? Really want this? But then you go right back to observing your now reality as far as it is manifested, which holds the absence of what you want, and you just tune yourself back into what you've got, and therefore away from what you want. Now, what we want to call your attention to is that with every request that you set forth, there is a vibrational reality that is accruing for you. Now, this is where some say, oh, here comes the story, here comes the fairy tale. And we say, it's a good one. It's the story of the becoming of you. There you stand, non-physically speaking, newly expanded because of exposure to this contrast. And this is a vibrational reality. We're going to call this your vortex of creation. But this is the thing that with all we have to say to you here today, that we most want you to leave here getting. This vibrational reality, as far as we and the larger part of you is concerned, is present tense. Because when you've asked for it, you've launched the rocket, and Source has accepted it, and law of attraction, which is the basis of all becoming, now is responding to this expanded version of you. And here's the line we want you to remember always, so much so we put it on the front of a book. All cooperative components are being assembled to this present tense vibrational reality. Now here's the rub for you. If you are like most humans, moving out of that a little bit every time you hear us, if you are like most humans, your manifested reality gets more kudos from you than your vibrational reality. Because your manifested reality, you can see it, you can hear it, you can smell it, you can taste it, you can touch it. And even more important, others can too. So you like the validation that you get from others as you all view the state of being. But we want to say to you in a way that you will never, ever, 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 ever forget it, with such profound wisdom that it will ring in your ears always, this now reality does not mean diddly squat. Very profound. And the reason that we put it to you in that way, we want to diminish the reality that you are observing, because the reality that you are observing is distracting you from the reality that you've created. And the reality that you created is way, way better. Way, 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 way better. Because when you're sick, you ask for wellness. And in your vibrational reality, in this vortex of creation, you are weller than you were before you got sick. Now, in your medical community, you sort of kind of understand that. You understand that exposure to some of that stuff only makes your immune system stronger. It only makes you better. You actually march yourself down to facilities all over your nation and let them inject you with stuff. so that your body will respond to it. In other words, you get it, that when you know what you don't want, that what you do want becomes a stronger part of your experience. And so this vibrational reality that is collected and gathered and spinning, that law of attraction is responding to in your vortex of creation, just know that it is present tense. And if you could accept it as done in the way that it is, and stop looking back at the unfinished part of it, which only holds you vibrationally out of sync with its doneness, then you would become, and this is the most important word you will hear all through the seminar, you will become a cooperative component yourself. It's so interesting to watch you. You do everything right. You're born, you explore contrast, you know what you don't want, you know what you do want, you send off these rockets of desires, that's step one. Source does everything right. Source gathers around what you've asked for and becomes it, and law of attraction does everything right. Law of attraction responds to the vibration of it, and all cooperative components are assembled for you, waiting for what? Waiting for you to become a cooperative component of your own desire. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it? So what keeps you from being a cooperative component to your own desire? I want more money. 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 Sounds pure enough. I want more money. I want more money because with more money I have more mobility. With more money I have more choices. With more money I have more freedom. And if those were the things you were saying, and if that elation was what you were feeling, you would be a vibrational match. You would be a cooperative component to your vortex of creation, to the pile of money that's been amassed. You should see it. But if you're saying, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, I've never had enough, can't remember having enough, my friends don't have enough, this friend is losing their house, this friend is moving out and renting their house, this friend is not doing well, this friend lost his job, I'm afraid I might lose my job. As you hold yourself in a vibrational frequency that's different from your fortune that's been amassed, you don't move closer to your fortune, but something even more important is happening. You don't feel good, because when you don't keep up with the vibration that life has caused you to become, there's a vibrational discord within you that is represented in your body with negative emotion. Every time you feel negative emotion, it always means the same thing. Life caused you to expand, and right now, right here, with what you're thinking about, what you're speaking about, what you're blogging about, what you're emailing about, what you're twittering about, those devices are not helpful. Until you make the decision that you will only Twitter from inside the vortex. You get a text message from someone, big trouble. Your reply must be, paste it in, type it and paste it. Going to the vortex, be back soon. Or headed for the vortex, once I get there, and I'm sure I'm in there, I'll be back to you. Be right back. Be right back. Be right back. Be right back, but not until I have reestablished my vibrational cooperation with who I am and all that I want, even regarding this subject that you have just texted me about. In other words, when you let yourself have a knee-jerk response to the dilemmas or problems or exposure to life, often your knee-jerk response is from outside the vortex. In other words, you read it, you're out, you respond, you're still 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 out. In other words, you're out. And anytime you are not a vibrational match to who you really are, it's a diminishment of your life experience, isn't it? So there are a few things that it is our desire to help you reconfirm within yourself today. First, it would be nice if you could accept the existence of this vortex of creation. And it would be even nicer if you could see it as we see it, as your present tense of creation. So that when your friend says to you, I don't see any improvement in your life, you can stand firmly inside your vortex of creation and say, that's because it's not visible to those who are outside the vortex. And they will say, have you seen a doctor lately? And you will say there are no doctors in the vortex of creation. When you let being in this vortex, when you let tuning yourself into the vibrational frequency of all that you are be your top priority, you get so much life back. Do you know how many arguments, how many words, how many efforts, how much action is necessary just to keep you alive and out of desperation when you're not in the vortex? In other words, it's a big effort to live this life when you're counting on your words and your action and your effort to make it happen. It's interesting. You could just have a conversation with one very well-meaning mother about her child that she adores more than life itself, and listen to all of the gyrations that she is going through in order to sort of kind of understand what's going on with her little boy and put it in the proper perspective, when really all she needs to do is step away from whatever's bothering him and away from whatever's bothering her and focus upon something that gives her access to the vortex, and from inside the vortex everything's clear. You cannot lead from behind. And if you are not in the vortex, then you have nothing to give anyone. Sometimes people say, Abraham, it seems like you teach selfishness. And we say, we really, 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 really do. Because selfishness, let's define it. Selfishness means vibrational alignment with self. And in order to understand that, you got to know who self really is. Self is source. Self is pure positive energy. Self is worthy. Self is clear-minded. Self is healthy. Self is full of vitality. Self is eager about life. And when you are willing to be selfish, which means you are willing to mimic the vibration of self, which means you're willing to release the thoughts that hold you apart from that and practice the thoughts that cause you alignment with that, which simply means you're selfish enough to care how you feel. That's when they call it selfish. People say, oh, you're so selfish, you're pleasing you. And what they mean is, you should please me? You're selfish because you please you, and I'm not selfish because I think you should please me instead of you? There's some screwy reasoning going on. And every time it matters to you to please them instead of you, oh, it's such short-term gain, such short-term gain. Because when you care about how someone else feels or how they are responding to you, so you behave in order to affect their response to you, you do them a very big disservice, because you teach them that through action and demand or cajole or control or power, that they can wrestle their life to the ground. And there's hardly going to be anybody as cooperative as you. Think about it. Have you ever had someone who was so cooperative they'd just do anything for you, and then they were the only one who would behave that way? So you just had that one friend? Often it was your mother. You weren't really ready for the world, were you? But when you show yourself that you have the power to come into alignment, not just with who you were before you were born, but with all that you've become ever since. Not just with you and all you've become, but with Source itself. When you show yourself that by being selfish, which means by reaching for the best feeling thought you can find on whatever subject is active, when you care about being in the vortex, you care about being in concert with the energy that creates worlds. And one who's in the vortex, one who's in alignment with that energy, is more powerful than millions who are not. It's such an interesting thing to watch what goes on in your planet, because you are so good at step one. Most of you have made such a career out of step one. You sift through the data, and you know what you don't want, and you know what you do want, and you know what you don't want, and you know what you do want, and you know what you don't want, and you know what you do want, and you know what you don't want, and you know what you do want, and you know what you don't want, and you know what you do want. And Source is over here, knowing what you want, being what you want, sending out a signal of what you want. Law of Attraction's over here, gathering what you want, gathering what you want, gathering what you want, gathering what you want. You're over here. That's creating by default. That's going where the wind blows. That's complaining about whatever they're complaining about and feeling about whatever's happening. But when you decide that you're going to take control of your relationship to who you really are, when you decide that you're going to tend to this gap between you, wherever you are on whatever subject you're experiencing, and who you really are and what you know about the same, now life is going to take a new form and shape for you. You're going to feel exhilarated. You're going to feel satisfaction. Those who are watching you will see you as someone who seems to create tremendously with ease. Those who are watching you, especially those who don't really understand the power of this vortex and the power of your deliberate alignment with it, they'll call you lucky. Many times they'll be jealous of you, because they'll watch your fortunes amass and your funds surround you, and they'll watch you in satisfying life experience. And when they say to you, "What do you know that I don't know?" the only thing that you can say to them that is of any real value to them is, "I figured out my relationship with me, and I'm constantly aware of my vibrational relationship to who I really am and what I really want. And I guide every thought I can to mesh with the wholeness that I am. I've become a deliberate thinker. I no longer create by default. I think on purpose, I speak on purpose, I act on purpose, and I don't do any of it unless I'm in the vortex." What do you mean? What's a vortex? What do you mean? What is a vortex? A vortex is a vibrational state of being that is the precursor of all positive motion forward of all that is. It's like encapsulated, condensed, straight up source. It's pure positive energy. It's the holding tank. It's the anchor. It's the touchstone. It's the place where all dreams and wishes and hopes are held until we find vibrational alignment with them. It's the eternal pool of well-being to which each of us have added mightily along the path of our physical experience. So this vortex, it is a reality even though you can't see it, but you can feel it. You know how your dog hears things you can't hear and smells things you don't want to smell? Because your dog has more acute sensitivity to sound than you do. Sound is just vibration, and hearing is just translating it. Smelling is just translating vibration. This vortex is something that while you can't see it, and while you may not be able to hear it, when you get in the vicinity of it, you can feel the deliciousness of it. And when you are far from it, you can feel the discord of not being close to it. Do you know that everything you feel all day, every day, is nothing more than feedback about your proximity to your vortex? So when you feel really ornery, you're vibrationally speaking not near your vortex. When you feel hopeful, you're right on the brink of it. In fact, this door to the vortex, this imaginary door in Abraham's fairy tale of the vortex, this vibrational entry point is somewhere between hope and belief. So when you feel hopeful about something, you're so in the vicinity that you'll be called in, you'll be swept in. Law of attraction will take you in. Law of attraction will take you in when there is not enough resistance to hold you out. How's that? If you weren't doing that thing you do that holds you apart from your vortex would take you in every time. When you slumber, in you go. But you wake up right where you were when you went in. If you go to sleep in the vortex, you wake up in the vortex. If you go to sleep not in the vortex, you wake up not in the vortex. Have you ever had an experience where you're ornery when you go to sleep? You sleep all night, you sleep pretty good, you wake up, still ornery. So the vortex is the source of well-being, calling you home, so to speak, calling you to all that you've created. And when you are not clinging with resistance to some thought that keeps you from it, it takes you right in. So really, when we say we want you to get into the vortex, what we really mean, a much more accurate way of saying it is, we want you to stop doing that thing you do that keeps the vortex from taking you in easily. Oh, you're going, you're just not going willingly sometimes. In other words, when you croak, in you go. So wonderful to watch you die. Moving immediately into all that you have become, all that you've asked for. But we don't think you should have to croak in order to be in the vortex. We don't think you should have to croak in order to be what life has caused you to be. So, as we're moving forward today, we're eager to talk with you about whatever it is you want to talk about. And it is our desire to help you to find a vibrational stance, which means a mental approach, which means an attitude about whatever it is that you've got going on. We want to help you soften your resistance, because when you soften resistance, the vortex takes you in. And that really is where you belong. You belong inside that vortex where rendezvous with exhilarating things can happen all day, every day. Do you know that if this time-space reality has the wherewithal to stimulate a desire, so that the desire is, in present tense, already gathered in this vortex of creation, that this time-space reality has the wherewithal to give it to you now. And the only reason there is a gap between you putting it in the vortex and it showing up where you and others can see it and smell it and hear it and taste it and touch it is because you've got more resistance about the subject going on than you do belief or expectation about the subject. That's all. You just got to move yourself into more expectation. So what do you want to talk about?
Thank you. In the hot seat again. I was reading a book the other day, and it was talking about the role language plays and how we communicate with our environment and how we communicate with other people.
What role does language play?
It conveys thought.
Say again?
It conveys thought, whether that be art or spoken or written word or body language.
It conveys thought. Do you think it conveys belief? The spoken word or language, does it convey belief? Do you think that people say what they mean?
Ultimately, yes. Everybody means and says what they mean, whether those words are very specific or not. The content of it.
Well, we think you're saying what you mean vibrationally, and the universe is responding to your vibration and giving you an exact replication of the mixture of vibrations and beliefs that you're offering. But we think it is a rare person who speaks what they mean. We think you speak what you've been taught to say.
But for example, if you were to look at the content of somebody's Twitter stream, you would notice that even the minute details of what they're saying may sound like what they're saying, what they mean. If you look at the entire stream of it, you actually get the content of who they are.
Well, we do not disagree with that. Over a longer period of
Right.
time, the essence of what you're feeling, in other words, someone who is predominantly out of the vortex is predominantly offering discouraging words and occasionally saying something peppy for effect. It's interesting. Now, we're teasing you about your twittering and your emailing and your communicating,
Right.
because we've noticed that what a lot of you do is you do that stuff from outside the vortex. And so when we talk about communication,
That's why I stopped twittering.
we don't want to talk about communication in and of itself. We don't want to talk about anything in and of itself. We want to talk about communication outside the vortex, inside the vortex. We want to talk about sex outside the vortex, inside the vortex.
So that's part of my question. So the reading inspired.
And even though you said nothing about it, Next.
So, if language conveys belief or thought,
It can.
the thought was inspired about what does thought, in essence, convey? In the sense that, does it convey intention? Does it convey state of being or potential state
What
of being?
thought conveys is an active point of attraction, period. Because words are scanty in relationship to vibration. But
Yeah.
so let's say on the furthest extension there is action. And then just back from it there is language. And back from that there is thought. But so close to thought is energy. And so close to that is source, or all that is. In other words, everything is vibration. And so out here in this physical world, so many of you have come to rely on actions and words, not taking into consideration the vibrational content that is behind them, even though 100% of the way everything in your life is working out is because of the vibration that you're offering. So the conversation that we're having with you, we just want to point out that your language often confuses you about what's really going on vibrationally and prevents you from feeling your relationship with who you really are. So you become actors and speakers rather than feelers and creators.
Right, that's why they say people that talk all the time rarely have anything we're saying.
Sometimes you'll read a very thought-provoking book. It's really nice to, and they become your classics often, where someone has really thought things through and they're
Like Emerson.
really communicating what they mean. And so we are not in any way bashing your language. We just want you to get in the vortex and then talk.
So I understand the concept of duality and contrast, and on the note of language or action or physical reality or manifestation, why, if the vortex exists, and if we create and source answers that, or if we ask and source answers that call, why do we even have a physical reality if we experience that anyway when we die?
Because the physical reality and its variety gives birth to thought that could not exist without the physical reality. This contrast that stimulates the new idea is what puts the eternalness in eternity. Without choices, you couldn't come up with a better one. Without contrast, you couldn't convert the contrast into an improvement.
So could non-physical exist without physical reality? Or are they paired?
Non-physical could and did exist without physical, because non-physical is always the precursor to what is physical. Here's how it works. First, non-physical, long before your earth came into the manifestation that you know, there was the thought about it. A part of you comes forth into this physical experience where you explore and have contrasting experiences and give birth to new desire. That rocket of desire is then held by source, and the new generations that come forth come from that new expanded vantage point. Mm-hmm. So the way that we like to explain it to you here and now is that you were part of the creation of this planet even before you were physical, but you have much more hands-on creating in the continuation of this planet now that you're here. In other words, this creation is all about fine-tuning, but there's something really important that we have to say to you. None of this creation is happening because another planet needs to be created or another painting needs to be created. But as the exhilaration of life is contrast causing you to expand, and the thrill of life then is coming up to speed to that newly expanded place. That's why life is so delicious. So often physical friends think they don't want the contrast because the contrast causes them to want. Jerry and Esther had a really interesting experience where for the first time in a long time, Esther said, "I wish we hadn't played in the game at all. It wasn't fun." So the launch date of the new Vortex book, which was number 6 on the New York Times this week. And feels like a failure to Esther. You'll understand as we tell you the story. So the book launch was to be September 1st. So they began, and their publisher, way back in the beginning of working with them, said to them when the first book was published, if you had not sold your Ask and It Is Given books through your own bookstore, through your own office, you would have made the New York Times. The numbers were so close and what you sold was so significant. So if you would send people to Amazon and to the bookstores, then you would make the New York Times. And then he said, most of the independent bookstores aren't counted in this book scan. It's only the larger stores. And so Jerry and Esther talked about it because they didn't want to really play that game. They don't write the books for the mark on the chart. At least they didn't then. So then, next book came and it made the New York Times, and the next book came and it made the New York Times, and the next book came and it made the New York Times, and the next book came, because they began playing the game in the way. And then the last book was number 1 on the New York Times, and Esther said, ooh, isn't that nice? And then she said, wouldn't it be fun to do that again? So they got the book launch all underway, and it was to be September 1st. And then people began calling, saying that Barnes & Noble was releasing the books, and it was still August, early in August. And Esther said, well, they're not supposed to because there is a launch date. And then they found out that Barnes & Noble had never agreed, and the books should not have been in their warehouse. And so now Esther is out of the vortex, and she says, this is really funny. The name of this book is The Vortex. And I am so out of the vortex because I cannot control the components. So then the publisher called and said, even though we made a mistake and we are very sorry about it, it looks like you've been number 1 for 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks in a row, according to the book scan numbers. And Esther said, oh, being in the vortex, it's so wonderful to be in the vortex. Look at the power of being in the vortex. And then the publisher sent another note saying, I just got a shocking email from the New York Times. They're not putting you on the list at all. And Esther said, how can this be? I thought the numbers were the numbers. And then she said, this is the way the email was presented. I'm not going to play in this game again. Outside the vortex. In other words, to want something that is not happening feels uncomfortable. And so then she spent a few days bringing herself back into the vortex. And it occurred to her that the New York Times was on hiatus, like so many are, so they just printed the numbers from the week before for the next week and the next week. And so their peak weeks, and so Esther said to Jerry, so what's this all about? What is this? If we hold a desire and we are a vibrational match to the desire, doesn't the universe give us what we are asking for? This is what you're talking about. In other words, this is why this conversation about language and vibration is so important. Esther said, does this mean it's wrong for me to want something? And we say, no, it is never wrong for you to want something. But in your vortex, there are so many things that you want that sometimes take way precedence over anything else. In other words, the whole experience for them, it reminded them they have never been in this game for recognition. They've always been. The reason that they've been on the road all of these years, and the reason that they take such delight in having this fun day with those like you, is because it is so much fun to take thought beyond that which it has been before. It's all for the feeling of expansion. And so everything that happens, no matter how it feels when it's happening, every piece of contrast causes an expansion of you into a new place that when you come into alignment with it, you're going to soar in a way you've never soared before. But so many times you say, oh, but in the pain of the contrast, it's not worth it. And we say, yes, it is every single time. Every time something causes you to feel that discord that you call injustice, or you call someone not doing their job, or you call unfairness, or you call even myself not being where I want to be. Every time you feel the discord of something not going the way you think you want it to go, know that there's power in it that has shot a rocket out. And the reason that it is significant is because when you shoot out a rocket, you have the opportunity to get in sync for the joy of a joyous ride. It's not about what anybody else thinks. It's just for the joy of your own ride, period, every single time.
Well, there's a new place to go then, because I'm a systems engineer and do a lot of work in semantics for the web. And there's the common theme now, and you brought it up with Twitter and email. There was a lot of information before in books, and now you have all those books plus the stream coming in from the internet. I typically spend about, or used to, 2 hours a day trawling through aggregation sites that filter that for you in itself. And the role technology plays in the gathering and the filtering of all these items that we use language for. Why are we using technology to do that? Even though I know a lot of it's being expressed through law of attraction, because you can see a lot of it happening that way, but why are we expressing it through technology when there is the more organic way of...
Well, we like what you're saying here, and here's the perspective that we would give to this. While you do use your language to deceive yourself and others about your true vibration, you also are using your technology in many ways to deceive yourself and others about your true vibration. The internet, with the technology of it, the vibration of it, the electronics of it, it is the closest thing to law of attraction and the way law of attraction works.
I see it all the time.
Of anything that exists on your planet.
And it happens really fast, too.
Which means that there has never been a more important time for you as individuals to manage your own gap. In other words, in the same way, we said several years ago that the technology of the search engines were going to be the basis of the technology as it's moving forward, because this glut of information, you have to find some way of sifting and filtering through it. Otherwise, it's just chaos. So when you open your computer and it just brings chaos to you, if you can't make some sense of it in some way that's meaningful to you, then it's just a bad experience. And so in a similar way, just let's talk about the physical world that surrounds you with all of the details and all of the opinions and all of the beliefs, most of which have little or nothing to do with you. But the more of it that you take in, that you bring into your filters, the more of it you take in, the more out of control it is. In other words, don't you just love it when you do a search for something and 55 million of them come up and you think this is going to take a while? So you only look at a handful of them and usually don't find a lot of satisfaction even in that. So what we're getting at, and we think maybe what you're getting at too, is that, and it really is the theme of this gathering and every gathering that we will have forevermore, is that when you take the time, when you acknowledge that the vibrational reality exists, and you take the time to tune yourself to it, it's like setting yourself up with a search engine that has searching and finding capabilities, the likes of which you have never even come close to in your human technology through the internet. In other words, this vortex of creation that law of attraction has assembled, all of these cooperative components, big stuff is going on there. It's a reality that exists. If you just take the time to simply find something to bask about, something to appreciate about. Appreciation is the fastest key into the vortex that we know. Meditation is another. Then you can just set aside layers and layers and layers and layers of struggle and sifting and sorting and just get into the vortex, you already did the sifting. It's like you've already done all of the legwork. You've already done all of the data collection. You've already put all of the components for your masterful search in this vortex of creation. And now the one last thing that you need to do in order to have a full-blown manifestation of all the best things that life has caused you to ask for is you've just got to get into the vortex. You don't have to search through the archives. You don't have to do anything other than get happy right now. Really, it would be comparable to having 10 life-giving, life-challenging questions on your mind. You're looking for money, you're looking for a lover, you're looking for a house to live in, you're looking for meaningful work. Let's say 5. You're looking for 5 really important things, or 10 or 20. You're looking for these 5 things that really, really matter to you. So you sit down at this giant computer that reaches to the boundaries of this boundaryless universe, and you push the button, and it says,
42.
It says, what is the password? What is the vibrational password? And you say, damn it, let me in. No. Invalid password. What's the password? I really, really deserve to get in there. No. Invalid password. My sister's in there and she doesn't deserve it. Why won't you let me in? Invalid password. I've been suffering. I've suffered my whole life. It's my turn. Invalid password. Until finally you sit there, you believe that this has the answers that you're looking for and the trail to everything that you want. And you finally, through trial and error, discover that you just have to find one thought. And suddenly the thought of Elsie, lovable cat, running through the bushes and jumping up the tree and climbing into the treehouse, just that fleeting thought, you're in. You're in. You're in. Then you remember, oh yeah, Elsie croaked. And then the computer says, access now denied, as the vortex spits you out. In other words, this vortex that we're talking about is something that you feel your way in, and you feel your way to maintain your experience there. Until just through experience, you show yourself the thoughts that get you in, the thoughts that spit you out, the thoughts that get you nearly in, the thoughts that get you all the way in. You just vibrationally tune yourself to the frequency of this delicious life that has been gathered for you and by you.
We just got there. Thank you.
Test. It works. All right. All right. Hello. It's a pleasure to be here. I've very much desired to interact with you. I'm a little nervous, so I'll try and breathe a little deeply.
You were beaming a bright light from over there, so you're not far from where you want to be.
I have a list of things that have been on my mind just the last few days, and something that struck me pretty largely when I arrived here was the number of women that are here as opposed to the number of men. Is there a vibe? Well, yeah, that's cool too.
We hadn't noticed.
Well,
Because vibrationally speaking, there is not that differentiation.
huh. That's interesting. You're certainly right on point with my thoughts on that. Was, is it that women have a higher vibration, or women more in touch vibrationally, sensitive, feeling their chi, I guess you might say, their energy, than the majority of men?
Or would it be the opposite? Well, here's what we're getting at.
Yeah.
So your assumption is because they have a higher vibration, they're here. but maybe they're here because they have more trouble. You're going to get all of us in trouble. Women are more introspective. Women do want to consider things more. Women are, we love you very much, more often outside the vortex than men.
Really?
Women are deciphering contrast and sending off more rockets of desire. Women are more acutely aware of their current environment. Now, it's never fair to throw everybody in one basket.
Certainly.
And give them a label. Some would say, well, women just care more. And we would say, women do think more about the details of life. Men do think more about the bigger pictures. And of course, it's not always true, but there is that vibrational difference. The reason that we don't notice that as a general rule is because everyone has source, everyone has launched rockets, everyone's source is calling them, and everyone is somewhere in relationship to it, you see. And all of this conversation that we're having with you, inspired by your gathering of statistics, so to speak, is a sort of outside the vortex conversation anyway. In fact, most statistics are gathered from outside the vortex, because most statistics, like the ones that we just sort of flowed back to you, that are as a result of what's out there in the domain of statistics in your human environment, those statistics that are gathered are about action and behavior and conversation, and the majority of that stuff is outside the vortex. So when you come to a gathering like this, our intent is to make you aware of the existence of the vortex and make you understand the power of it, and then use whatever conversation that we can to make you alert and aware of your relationship to it.
I like it.
You are vibrational beings, and so it is the relationship between the vibrational you and the vibrational you that is our only definition. Whether you are male or female or anything else really is irrelevant.
I'm curious, do cuss words have energy, and do they affect your vibration? You use the F word or say other cuss words, and does that affect your I mean, some people I work with use the F word as an adjective.
Well, then it doesn't affect their vibration in the way it would someone who only says it when they really, really have something that they're trying to say. In other words, the word doesn't matter. It's the way you feel while you are expressing it.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Wow.
It used to be a word, that one, that got a lot of attention, but it doesn't so much anymore. Really, by the time the gathering is finished, we want to bring you to the place where word and action become irrelevant to you, and vibrational countenance and emotion, the way you feel, is everything to you. And so when someone expresses language that depicts their feeling of injustice or their rage, we don't care about their language, but we don't like them so far from their vortex. But we acknowledge that as we stand in the vortex calling them, if they are in a place of powerlessness, then rage is a step in the right direction. And maybe that language, even if it is by some standards offensive, is serving them because it's at least giving them a feeling of empowerment. It's much better than a feeling of disempowerment, and that is, in the majority of cases, why someone offers it. It is their attempt at regaining their own power. So if someone displays that language in a way that you are hearing it, and they are in a position that they can hear you, say to them, good for you, you're taking back your power. But if someone is hopeful and then they are expressing rage, it's not so good because they're moving in the wrong direction. And you hear a lot of that. That's when people are using it just because it has become another word. You can tell when they're using it to move in the right direction. You can tell when it has no power within it. Language, irrelevant.
vibration.
Language is a nice thing because it gives us points of convergence. It gives us an opportunity to converge on a topic and take it to a further place. It can bring a group of people into sort of aligned thought. But do you notice how you often don't even need words? You're aligning anyway? Law of attraction is a very powerful thing. Yes. What
Yes.
else?
Oh, much more. I'm very curious as to why Jerry and Esther weren't born in, say, Saudi Arabia or Russia, and why they chose, I do understand the choice, they chose to be born in the United States and do the work that is being done here rather than, say, in Saudi Arabia or Nepal or something.
Well, we're going to answer your question further, and we're also going to give you another piece of it that you have not considered. First, we want to say to you that the reason that you continue to return into this time, space, earth environment is because this is where you have set forth your intentions. And so it's just a logical place of reemergence. Do you understand that you have many physical experiences? It's not uncommon for many of your physical experiences to be in the same region, not because the other regions are not conducive to your expansion or every bit as conducive to your expansion, but because that's where your vibration has been, and so it's just the path of least resistance. You sort of get what we're talking about? We talked earlier about how sometimes you think that that is your intention, but beneath that intention there are intentions, layers and layers and layers of intentions. And so when you think about the work that Jerry and Esther are doing, can you think of any place that would be more conducive than this place?
Not at all. Not at all.
Esther laughs because they go into a bookstore and their books are off in the scary corner.
Yeah.
And sometimes it bothers her a little bit because the books that were taken from their material are out there in the front, while the source is back there in the scary corner. And then Esther thinks, isn't it nice that the books are there? Isn't it nice that people can find them? Isn't it nice that they are available? And there is no place more conducive to what they're doing than this place.
In the United States.
It's not the only place. It's just for their intentions and for their movement. You see, Jerry's dominant intent was the expansion of the message. People will say, well, you need to get bigger rooms, and you need to, if you'll come here, we have bigger theaters, and there are much larger crowds waiting for you. And Jerry always says, we're not looking for numbers. We just want to have an opportunity for as many people as who want to gather, to have a conversation for the purpose of taking thought beyond that which it has been before. And so the geography of this place, it's easy for them to get around. They're a relatively large population that speak a common language. For so many reasons, it's the perfect place for them. This time, and last time, and the time before, and next time, and next time, and next time, and the time after that, and the time after that, and the time after that, and the time after that.
How exciting.
And the time after that, and the time after that, and the time after that, and the time long after the New York Times is no longer in existence. The time after that.
So recently I've decided that I wanted to feel good. I thought that was a pretty good decision. And so every day I make a statement, I want to raise my vibration, I want to feel good, I want to think good thoughts, I want to feel positive energy, I want to interact with positive people. I want to, I express this in my mind, while I'm doing something physical like construction or something of that nature. And, that's working, isn't it? It is raising my vibration.
Yes,
correct?
your intention to do it is. And the thing about speaking an intention like that is that while the words in and of themselves do not necessarily raise your vibration, it does make you poignantly aware when you're on it and when you're off of it. In other words, by setting forth an intention that you verbalize, by making a statement of intent, you are more aware when you are up to speed with it than when you are not. There are a lot of people that have been talking about affirmations for a long time. we just want to point out something that you may not have considered that is so helpful once you do. Jerry was talking about our mentioning that once you get into the vortex, you could you could take any of the books, but particularly this recent book. It is constructed in a way that any page you open to, there is a header that will show itself to you. And the conversation is brief enough on each header that you can read it in a very short period of time. So once you are in the vortex, once you are feeling good, to turn somewhere and open at what feels like random, the source within you will turn you right to the place to tune your vibration right where you are asking for it to be tuned. Do you get a sense of it? In other words, even these cards that some are calling affirmation cards, think of the difference between affirming from inside the vortex and affirming from outside the vortex. Now, you talked about language and some of the expletives. There are a lot of people who are affirming their discord from outside the vortex. And every time you affirm it, every time you focus, you activate it. When you speak it, you activate it more. When you act on it, you activate it even more. In other words, that kind of focus sort of trains you into a vibration of discord. So affirming from outside the vortex, when you say, I knew that would happen, or I've told you that over and over again, or why do I do this to myself? There are all kinds of affirmations that you speak that are not serving you. So when you decide that you will do 100% of your affirming, in other words, when you're outside the vortex, sort of draw in and be quiet and don't talk to anyone. Try to take a nap. In other words, when you're outside the vortex, don't practice those vibrations, because whatever you give your attention to, first it's a vibration that's active, then it's longer activated, which means it becomes dominant, and by the time it becomes a dominant vibration, it's a strong point of attraction for you. So if you now understand the vortex, and we think you do, by the time the day is finished you will, and you decide that you want to feel good, which in this new frame of reference is, I want to be in the vortex, meaning I want to be in concert with all that I am, meaning I want to be one of the cooperative components that is assembled with all of the things that I'm wanting. I want to keep up to speed with me. I want to be all that I can be. I want to feel the fulfillment, live the fulfillment of all that life has caused me to be. I want to keep my promise to myself when I decided to come. I want to be in the vortex. I want to close that gap. I want to be tuned in, tapped in, turned on. I want to be the fullness of who I am. I want source flowing through me, blowing through me. I want to see the world through the eyes of source. I want to uplift everyone who is in my vicinity. I want to call people into the vortex, not out of the vortex. I want to be the uplifter that I was born to be. You say a lot when you say, I want to feel good, don't you? I want to be in the vortex. So now that you know what the vortex is, and you know that appreciation is the key to it, or just ceasing what is holding you out of it, but we've never known anyone who can stop thinking that thought. When you say, I'm not going to think that thought anymore, you're thinking that thought that you're planning on not thinking. And Esther will say, well, I'm only going to talk about this just for a little while and I'll let it go, but I just wanted to say this one last thing. I just want to say this one last thing about that. You can't say the last thing about it, because while you're saying the last thing about it, you're shoring up your vibration and your point of attraction. You have to decide what the next thing is you're going to say. You can never say the last thing about that. The last thing about that is eternal. It will keep coming. You got to change the conversation to something else. So when you decide that you want to be in the vortex, and you're looking for those in the vortex sort of conversations, and you get closer and closer, and then you feel yourself, the exhilaration that you always feel when you move in, that's where you want to do your affirming. So that's the time that we would be not saying, I want to feel good. You'll be saying, I feel so good. It feels so good. I love being here. Get in and then affirm, 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 affirm. And if you're not in, be quiet. Seriously, be quiet. Don't call people when you're not in the vortex. It just practices the out of the vortex stuff. Don't send an email when you're not in the vortex. It just practices the out of the vortex. There is no problem solving that ever takes place outside of the vortex. The problem is never solved. You cannot see the solution until you completely disengage from the problem, you see.
Yeah, swim.
You will never wrestle it to the ground and kill it. You just never will. It just gets bigger and bigger. So it's a lovely thing when you say, I want to feel good, and it is working. Yes, it is working. But these subtle steps will make a difference. Get in the vortex however you can. Do you like being in the ocean? Go often. Do you like having your nails filed? Then get somebody to file them often. In other words, pamper yourself more. Do the things that put you in the vortex. Stop trying to sacrifice and suffer yourself into it. You cannot hard work yourself into the vortex. You just cannot. You cannot justify. You cannot demand. You cannot rationalize yourself into the vortex. You get in the vortex because you deserve to be there. You get into the vortex only when you accept that you're good, or you accept that someone else is. In other words, appreciating yourself or someone else, or meditating. Those are the extremes. When you appreciate, you go right into the vortex. When you meditate, you stop all resistant thought and you go right in the vortex. That's the range we would use. Either appreciate or meditate yourself in, and then once you're in there, affirm, 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 affirm,
Nice.
affirm, affirm. Practice it, practice it, practice it, practice it. Practice the feeling. Just rant like a crazy person. Jerry and Esther will take their walk, and if anybody is following them, they'll think they came from a psycho ward, because they're just looking for another thing and another thing and another thing and another thing, just milking it, milking. They must have said 5 million times in the 6 weeks that they've been in the area how much they love that grain of sand and that grain of sand and that grain of sand and that bird and that pelican and that fish and that view and that. In other words, they're just almost like crazy people in their minute nitpicking appreciation of everything that surrounds them. Every breath of air they have to comment on. Did you smell that? Did you smell that? Did you smell that? Anyone following them would say, geez, get a life, will you? Anything you can do to get in the vortex. Yes.
That's the appreciation. Appreciating the fall colors or the fragrance from spring in the air. Those things. I feel that.
Sometimes you're far enough from the vortex that appreciation doesn't do it for you. But keep going for it, because eventually you'll tune yourself to it, you see. And meanwhile, just use the expletives. It's better than powerlessness.
Our primary intent with this work is to connect with those who are attracting this information, and Esther and I are most appreciative of the role of your intentions in this joyous co-creative experience. For additional recordings, books, DVDs, catalogs, or to reserve your space at an Abraham-Hicks Law of Attraction workshop, please call area code 830-755-2299 or write to Abraham-Hicks Publications at Post Office Box 690070, San Antonio, Texas 78269. Also, for an immediate overview of our works and the wealth of free information available to you, visit our interactive website at www.abrahamhicks.com. All Abraham materials are copyrighted by Jerry and Esther Hicks.
I have a question about telepathy. I feel sometimes I'm walking on the sidewalk and I pass an individual and I feel as if I can almost hear what they're thinking. Like
Well, you can, but the important thing to know is you have to be on their wavelength before you hear them. So if it's bad news, then acknowledge where your vibration had to be for you to pick up on it.
Right. And that's amazing because just recently, well, I don't know how recent it was, but something that came to mind bringing up this topic was I passed an elderly gentleman, and what I felt from him, for whatever reason, was he was concerned I was going to hurt him or rob him or something, and I was just like, well, geez, man, that's crazy. What the hell are you talking about?
But now I think about it, I think I might.
So if you're on that wavelength, then
Well, you don't have to be a robber for someone to think you are.
right.
But if you are worried about them thinking you are, you're on their wavelength.
Yeah, that sucks.
Jerry and Esther were walking on the beach, and they were basking and enjoying, and there's a cliff that occasionally a big chunk of it falls and kills someone. So they walk far from it, and while they were walking yesterday, there was a man sitting on the most recent pile of rubble that just fell. And it got Esther's attention because it wasn't there one day and then it was there the next day, so they knew it really happened recently. And all the signs say, keep back, that it's unstable.
Place.
And so Esther said, I think I'll go tell him. And Jerry said, it's going to be quite funny when you become buried by the rubble. In other words, you're the only one worried about the cliff falling. You'll kill the guy by going over there. So, as well-meaning as you are, in other words, it's really helpful to just train yourself as best you can on good-feeling thoughts. It's an interesting thing. When the more guarded you become, even if you're guarded against someone being guarded against, it's not an easy thing to live in a world where a lot of people are thinking a lot of thoughts and you're hearing a lot of opinions without forming your own opinions. That's a very good thing. Just try to guide your thoughts as often as you can toward what feels good. So, for example, let's say you pass this person and you sense through his body language or through his mental telepathy, and that is very valid and real, that he is worried about you. And that didn't set well with you, right, because you don't want to be misunderstood.
Correct.
But you have to understand that everybody misunderstands you because nobody understands you. Nobody really knows. The only understanding that is really valid is the understanding between the vibration of your thought right now and the vibration of the source within you. And when you try to consider any of the thoughts that anyone else is having, it will just take you out of your tending to your own gap. Right. So you're walking along and you pick up on that vibration. And it doesn't matter why you were in the vicinity. Maybe he was offering it in a very strong way, and you were in the vicinity of it because you're an uplifter. In other words, every subject is two subjects. If you're an uplifter, on the other end of that is the opposite of uplifting, and depends upon what part is most active within you, what you'll rendezvous with. So now you're very sensitively trying to figure out what's going on with your vibration. So he didn't say anything to you. He didn't hold a weapon up to protect himself. You didn't hear the door locks click as you walked by. In other words, it was just a soft thought that you thought you picked up on. And when you received the thought, it didn't feel good. Correct. Your guidance is telling you this thought that you're thinking doesn't jive with this thought that the source within you is thinking. So you don't have to figure out what's wrong with the thought. You don't have to figure out why there's discord. You just have to ask yourself the question, just like you said to us, I want to be in the vortex. I want to see this through the eyes of source. And so as you reach for that better feeling thought, you might not be able to do it in that red hot moment, but eventually you will. If this is an issue that you want to get resolved, you'll come to the place where you'll say things to yourself like, nobody really understands exactly where anybody else is. This is much more about him than it is about me. This is not a form of prejudice where he's pushing against, and even if it isn't about me. This person has no real way of knowing where my vibration is. If my vibration is here and his vibration is here, if I'm feeling good mostly and he's feeling bad mostly, we're not communicating at all. So he's doing what almost everybody on the planet's doing. He's making his decisions by those bogus things that he can see, or by the consensus of others. Don't you think that's interesting? Most people are making their decisions based upon the fearful rules that have been set up by other people. He's outside the vortex, having to make all of his decisions based upon stuff that he's picked up along his physical trail that has nothing to do with me. And eventually you'll come around to the place where his opinion of me has nothing to do with me. We don't want you to care what his opinion of you is. We want you to not care, even if he was really afraid of you, even if he was really prejudiced about you, even if he was really defensive, even if he goes to meetings where they are actually advocating against you or those like you. We don't want you to care about any of that, because that all falls in the realm of your uncontrollable. The discord that you felt was not because of what he thought. The discord you felt was because your thought didn't jive with what the source within you knows. Source within you knows that there are a lot of people out there thinking a lot of things that have nothing to do with you, and the source within you doesn't concern itself or think about those people at all. And when you do, you get crossways.
Yeah.
Do you know how much work you would have to do to convince everyone that walks on the street who you are and what your intentions are? Think about it. Think about how many books you'd have to write and how many talk shows you'd have to be on and how many one-on-one conversations you'd have to have. And they can't remember you from one day to the next anyway, so you have to start over with the whole planet every single day. Every single day you'd have to start all over again, you see. Kill me now.
That's too much.
Or you could make what he thinks and where he is irrelevant to you by taking the emotional hit and then working yourself into the vortex until you've reminded yourself that he just doesn't know, that he has a misunderstanding, and it's not your job to correct his misunderstanding in order for you to be happy. Oh, when you finally get that, it's not my job to correct anybody's misunderstanding. I do not have to reorient the New York Times. I do not have to understand the powers that be or why they make the decisions that they do. I don't have to understand any of that. None of that has anything to do with me. None of that has anything to do with me. The only thing that has anything to do with me is the thought that I'm thinking right now and how that thought jives with who I really am and what I really think. Oh, freedom in that. There's such freedom in that.
I like that a lot. I've been playing drums for the majority of my life at this point. And it's something that brings me tremendous joy, and it's very creative, expressive. I feel totally free. I don't care about anyone or anything. So that's my vortex, pretty much.
Well, it certainly represents it, because in order for you to be effective, and in other words, you've actually tuned yourself to the rhythm of your source.
That's really cool.
That literally is what's happening. And you can feel how even it takes seconds now, but when you first begin, it takes you a little while to get into that rhythm, but it's a rhythm that you've learned. So in the same way that you've learned the rhythm of your source in this fantastic skill that you have honed, you can learn the rhythm of your source relative to every thought that you ever consider. And the rhythm of your source will give you a sort of rundown on it. The rhythm of your source, the dominant basis of the rhythm of your source is absolute worthiness. That's the rhythm of your source. And when you deviate even in the slightest, even when you say, I shouldn't have done that, you're out of the rhythm of your source and you'll feel the discord of it. The rhythm of your source is an immense understanding of worthiness. The rhythm of your source is love. The rhythm of your source is one of eternal and sought after expansion. The rhythm of your source is more. The rhythm of your source is more. More exposure to more contrast for more delicious expansion, more eternal beingness. The rhythm of your source is this expanded, loving, worthy being. That's the rhythm of your source. And you can tell, you can just feel when you get off rhythm. Isn't it an awkward thing to get off rhythm with those drums?
Totally.
Couldn't one lousy drummer mess up the whole band?
Absolutely.
And isn't that rhythm is so core. That rhythm of your source is so core. So when you think about the rhythm of my source, what is the rhythm of my source? Source loves. When you don't, you're out of step.
Yeah. So I want to transition from my current form of employment and work solely as a professional drummer and earn a supplemental income with this multi-level marketing business that I've been working with. And in terms of a workshop, what should I do to piece that together more clearly? I've been reading.
Well, here's the thing. You see, when we talk about workshops or when you talk about piecing it together, this is the thing that we want this gathering to tell you. We want you to leave knowing this. It's already pieced together. It's already gathered. It's already present tense in the vibrational realm. You don't have to figure it out. You just have to get into the vortex. It's such an interesting thing. Think about what you know about the experience of drumming. You know when you're in your groove and you know when you're not.
True.
And you know when you're better in it and you know when you're worse in it. And you know there is a distinguishable difference when you're really in there and when you're not. And so just use that as your touchstone to remind yourself that relative to any subject that is important to you, we wouldn't even take the means with which you plan to earn your money, whether it is through your drumming or through your business, we would not consider that specifically. We would instead step back into a more general viewpoint and acknowledge that the cooperative components have already been assembled, and all you've got to do is drum yourself into your vortex and then follow the impulses that come. That's the plan. There's only one plan. Get in the vortex and follow your impulse. But don't follow your impulse before you get in the vortex, and don't follow anybody else's impulse. They'll all tell you what you need to do, but they don't know what you need to do because they don't really know what's in your vortex, you see.
Yeah. Tremendous. Wow.
That's the thing that was so unsettling about this whole book thing, is that by following someone else's plan, you can get distracted from what's actually in your vortex. You see what we're getting at?
Yeah.
What's in your vortex is so vivid and so real and so satisfying when you follow it. And so it sounds a little bit like we're saying, be less deliberate. And we're saying, we are saying that in this sense. Step 1 is so specific, and step 2 is taken care of. You work on step 3, which means get into the vortex. So what should I do? Get in the vortex. No, Abraham, what should I do? Get in the vortex. No, but once I'm in the vortex, what should I do? And we say, once you're in the vortex, you'll know what to do. Oh, but what should I do? Get in the vortex. This is getting boring, Abraham. How do I get in the vortex? Drum.
All right.
So I get in the vortex and I drum, and that's all I need to do? Yeah, until from inside the vortex you think of something else you want to do. And the impulse will be so clear and so strong and so vivid, you'll know. And until that comes, don't do anything. Now, you say, well, maybe I should continue to go to my current work. And we say, we would. In other words, we would. In other words, you don't need to upset your apple cart altogether, but just let your emphasis be on getting in the vortex and then following the impulses that come. And little by little, the impulses will be so strong and so clear and so yielding of what you need that the transition will come easily. Don't try to orchestrate the transition. Let the transition from one to the other happen from inside the vortex. And it will happen in such a gradual, comfortable way that you'll look back and you'll see how far you've come, but it won't feel like any big transition. What happens to a lot of people, they make their businesses bigger than their business because they do it in terms of action rather than in terms of inspiration. They try to motivate themselves into action rather than getting into the vortex and letting the vortex. You got to understand, this vortex, can you feel the power of it? First of all, do you believe that you are source energy more than you are this physical being? And do you understand that that source energy part of you has been gathering all the things you've been asking for and holding them with a vibrational place marker for you? Can you feel, as we know, that the things that you want, vibrationally speaking, have already been assembled? And most of you can go that far as a result even of this conversation. But where it breaks down is, if you can't see it, then you don't know it. Well, we know it because we can feel it. So what we're asking you to do is to feel your way into the vortex so that you also can feel it. And once you consistently feel it more than you feel the absence of it, then it must manifest where you will be able to see it. That's how it works, you see. That's really what religions have been trying to describe that faith is. Faith is an understanding of the laws and a belief in the goodness that abounds and an alignment with that and an absence of resistance and therefore an allowance of the manifestation of what you're asking for. But it requires focus, and we're just saying, we watch you as you debate health care, or as you debate the war now in Afghanistan, or as you debate one thing after another as a nation or as a community. And in the debating process, which is a step 1 process, you have, as a nation and as a global economy and as a global ecology, you have amassed a vibrational reality that is so pleasing and so powerful and so absolutely the bright future that you are reaching for. But you keep holding it off as your future because you're so busy still doing more step 1 work about what's wrong with now. If you could take a break from step one, you'd start reaping the benefits of all of this work. There's generations of asking piled up ready for manifestation for you, you see. It is so interesting to us to watch people in their fear of their bodies breaking down, asking for more health and then denying themselves their own health as they squabble over who's going to pay for it. Where if you could just sort of set it aside, let it be somebody else's job, and just get in the vortex and let your thriving ensue.
That sounds fun.
It is. Enough?
One last thing. So I'm creating this vision, and I'm seeing it, and I'm feeling it, and I'm drumming my way into the rhythm of Source.
But wait. Because you're not really doing that in the way that we are defining it. In other words, step back from it just a little bit. What you put in your vortex, you've been putting there long before you started deliberately setting goals and making plans. And what we want you to feel from us is almost everybody is setting goals and making plans from outside the vortex, and the very setting of those goals and the very making of those plans is what's keeping them from the realization of what's in the vortex. Can you hear that? It falls into the category of just trying too hard, working too hard at it. In other words, it would be like getting in your vehicle and believing that you've just been too unattentive, so now you're going to get under the hood and work with the pistons and the pulleys on this drive, instead of just letting the engine be the engine and you doing your part. And so we just want to convey to you that the engine of your creation has already done its work. You sifted and you put it there, and it has been assembled, and it is ready to show itself to you in an unfolding that will be very pleasing for you. And in the majority of cases, and we can feel it here now, your desire to make it happen is hindering you. We want you to shift from making it happen. Now, we get it. We give you processes, and you work those processes, and we just want to give you one big statement that applies to every process that we've ever given you. The only reason that we've ever given you a process, and the only function of any process we've ever given you, is to get you in the vortex. That's it. That's the extent. That's the extent of your work, to get in the vortex. What does that mean? Stop offering resistance. What does that mean? Stop thinking the contradictory thought. What does that mean? Stop trying so hard. What does that mean? Stop deciphering where you are with so much tenacity. Stop taking score of where you are so much. This is going to sound weird, but we would like you to just take a step back from the physicalness that you think is so real and give your vibrational reality a chance. You're so enamored with your reality. Let's look at it. Let's talk about it. Let's write a book about it. Let's do a talk show about it. Let's write a history about it. Let's write memoirs about it. Let's put monuments about it. Let's debate it. Let's get on Oprah about it. Let's Google it. Let's decipher it. And we say, let's not. Let's let it just be the bouncing off place that it is, and let's turn our undivided attention to where you're going instead of where you are or where you've been. Let the laws of the universe breathe life into you. If you could accept that everything that you're dreaming about and everything that you're wanting is done, and all you got to do is stop thinking the thoughts that contradict the doneness of it. Can you feel what we're getting at? You just got to lighten up. Just lighten up.
All right. Thank you very, very much.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
And as you're walking, we're going to keep talking to you because we want you to think about when you're drumming. When you're drumming, do you think that you're thinking about where you're going to place every stick on every surface? Is that something that you are intricately thinking about, or is all of that happening at an unconscious level? It's happening at an unconscious level. We will say it for you. We know that it is. In other words, you cannot precisely think like that. The parts are moving too fast. When you get into the flow of it, in other words, the rhythm of that just blows through you, you see. And that's the way this creation process works. You just ease up and you think less deliberately. And so let us give you another way of looking at this, and then we'll move on to something even more fun. So when you're looking at the specifics of something and you can tell you're out of the vortex while you're doing it, just back up a little bit. Be more general about it. If you're still out of the vortex, back up a little more. If you're still out of the vortex, back up a little more, until eventually you will back away from the details of what's bothering you so much that it will be deactivated, and in the vortex you'll go.
Hi. I have a couple questions. They're probably pretty easy for you.
They're all easy for us. We just make them up. From inside the vortex, we're really smart.
Is there any difference between normal recycling of, say, a tree when it dies, it goes into the earth, etc.? The molecules are recycled into plants, flowers, etc. Is there any difference between that type of recycling and reincarnation?
Well, we get the premise that you're going for. Nothing ever really goes anywhere. Everything is an evolution of something more. So in that sense, we will say yes. Yes.
What's the significance of DNA? Is all life based on that in terms of if
everything has DNA. Everything that is physical does. And what it is, it's the vibrational electronic patterning.
Uh-huh. Last year, you said that a rock had consciousness and,
yes.
that it was aware of itself and it was happy to be a rock. Is mankind somehow special or endowed with something different or...
Well, here's an even more important way to look at this. The consciousness that is really you can explore the deliciousness of being a rock or a human or a frog. The consciousness that is really you has no limits about where it can explore.
How is my consciousness, though? I mean, I can see how the accumulation of all my molecules and atoms and the collective vibration of me exists, but I don't understand how it can exist outside of my collective molecules functioning and vibrating. In other words, after I die, there's me somewhere else in some other form, but...
Well, after you have, we'd like to be disrespectful and call it croaking since there is no death, but after you have what you call your death experience, you return to the consciousness that existed before you were in this body that has now expanded to a further point of understanding and beingness because you were in this body.
But is that actually me, or does it go back to the recycling? In other words, the tree dies, it goes into the earth, it turns into soil. Other plants use its molecules. Where is the tree in the insects and the things that are...
In order to make this understanding valid for you, you have to accept that behind the molecule that you can see is a vibrational molecule that you can't see.
Right.
In other words, you're just reaching deeper into the roots of that which you are calling physical.
How is that recycling of the tree? And I'm paralleling it to if I was the tree. In other words, if I die, I go into the ground, just like a tree would. How is the collective vibration of me, how is it maintained in a blade of grass or a flower or something?
Through focus. Through focus. In other words, it's a directing of consciousness. It is focused. It's not random. It's not unspecific. It's focused. Let's start an easier conversation, and we'll go back to the precision of this, because we like what you're reaching for here. The only difference really worth noting between a human and, say, an animal, like your dog or cat, is that the human in physical form consciously focus thoughts more precisely for more meaningful and deliberate creative control. Everything in the universe, whether we are talking about the soil or the molecules or the energy that you've been discussing here, all of that is in motion, all of it is vibrating, and all of it is being managed by law of attraction.
Right.
So let's step back again. All of that experiences expansion and evolution precisely the same. In all of it, there is exposure to life, whether you are a rock or a dog or a human. There is consciousness, there is conscious recognition of exposure to that life, and there is a selfish perspective request that is made as a result of that. So the dog that you share your planet with is having step one moments just like the human is. But the dog, because it is not deciphering, not evolved like man, and not deciphering with the precision and the personal request, the dog is not asking. Its step one moments are not causing an asking with the precision that the evolved species of human has.
Right.
However, the dog does a much better job of step three. Because whether it is a dog or a human or a rock asking, Source hears the request and responds to it, and the evolution and the better experience is set into motion. The dog, very unlikely to be in a state of resistance. The rock, really unlikely to be in a state of resistance. Human, more likely to be in a state of resistance. So the consciousness framework is the same for all. So does that mean that man is more evolved than the dog? Well, in the sense that you've come to more specifically decipher and more personally decide, yes. But the dog is more evolved in the sense that whatever it is asking for, it is not resisting. And all of it fits together. And all of it is for the delicious, conscious experience of you. Now, we just have to define for you who that you is that we are referring to. So there is this source energy you that exists beyond the flesh you,
Where?
beyond the flesh dog.
Where is it?
Where would you say the wireless internet is? Esther used to really like that Ethernet cord. She plugged it in, and she had a feeling that that pretty blue cord went into the wall and into the ground and under the ocean and everywhere. Of course, it doesn't. There was something sort of nice about at least knowing where it came from before she plugged it into her computer. There's something sort of unsettling about those hot spots. Where is it? Where's it coming from?
Right. Well, I understand that it seems like, I know the collective energy, the molecules, the atoms, all the energy that hits Earth, it's pulsing, it's growing it, it's evolving it. And I feel that that's what we're a part of.
Well, see, what's tripping you up is you think this stuff is real.
Well, no, I'm trying to understand.
You think this reality that we're trying to distract you from, you like this reality so much that you're trying to turn what is non-physical into this reality, when all this reality is your interpretation of what is non-physical.
That's true.
So where were you in the dream?
I just want to know where I am when I'm not me.
We want to dissuade you from the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. And we want to reacquaint you with the feeling. We want you to feel the contentment and satisfaction and knowingness that comes from aligning with that broader perspective. And when you begin to feel that, it becomes less important to try to define it in the physical sense.
I know.
Everything that you want, whether it's a material object or a state of being, everything that you want, no matter what it is, you want it because you think you will feel better in the having of it. And we're wanting to say that in the coming into alignment with the energy that is really you, your sense of stability and security will come on so strong. We attended Jerry and Esther dragged us there, a conference years ago in Las Vegas, and it was a UFO convention. And the people there, they wanted to know who we are, and we explained, and they wanted to know where we were from. And we said from implies a place, and place implies physical, and we are non-physically focused. And therefore, as far as they were concerned, we were not valid. If we'd been willing to make up a story about where we had come from, they would have given us some credibility and maybe listened a little bit. But we come from the non-physical realm that is energy. And you are out here on the leading edge of thought, taking that non-physical energy and translating it into the physical equivalent, you see. And we just want you to understand that the further expanded it is and the more manifested it is, doesn't mean that the beginning of it or even the consensus of it or even the culmination of it, the inner being within you, the eternal part of you, is not physical and never will be. But you are the physical representative of that. When we come back from segment of lunch, would you like to take this conversation further, or we'll begin with you?
Okay, thank you.
And are you refreshed? Yes. Good.
Hi.
Bring us into the specifics of your question and where it is now.
Okay, I've been refining it.
Jerry hoped that you might.
You've said previously that string theory is true and that there are multiple universes, parallel universes, whatever. My question is, the essence of me, when I die, how is it maintained in the whole of things so that...
But you see, here is the flawed premise that is making this an impossible question to answer.
Okay.
The non-physical part of you, even while you're here in this physical body, is still the primary dominant part of you. The soul of you, the source of you, the energy part of you is the eternal and dominant part of you. So when you have your death experience, yes, the physical part of you will become part of the garden.
Right.
The non-physical part of you is changing moment by moment, thought by thought, while you are here in this physical body. In other words, everything that you are living, these rockets of desires that we're talking about, that's you feeding the non-physical part of you. And that part of you stands now and will stand then after what you call your death experience as this vibrational beingness.
But where is it? In other words, I become an Abraham, right?
You become it, but you are it now. That's the thing that you're having a hard time hearing. And we understand why. You're accustomed to thinking in terms of being dead or alive. And while I'm in this body, I'm alive. And when I die, then what? And we say, while you're in this body, before your birth, you were non-physical energy. During your birth, you are non-physical energy. After your death, you'll be non-physical energy. In other words, that part of you, that's the constant part of you. This coming and going physical part of you is the coming and going physical part of you. But this is the constant.
No, I get that, but I hope I'm not redundant here. But
well, you are, but but then so are we.
But how is my essence? Where is it? Does it go into a parallel universe and pop in to another reincarnation?
Well,
or
that's equivalent to saying, where is my thought? Where is the thought that I think?
It's right here.
Where did it come from? Where was it before I hooked up with it?
Well, I mean, the source pulses my carbon, if you
You're
will.
giving too much credit to your brain and to your physical beingness, you see.
Right. Well, I mean, I know the source, and I know how it pulses all life, including me. In my mind, my uniqueness comes from the unique form of my carbon and my past experiences in life, and so I pulse this vibration. Sometimes it's in the vortex, sometimes it's not, but I still can't grasp, so maybe it's not graspable, where my essence...
You can't even say that.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like, do the beings of Abraham recognize who they were when they were last physical?
Yes.
Okay, so...
But it is irrelevant. Maybe this is the best way for you to hear it. Sometimes people will say to Esther, it's so nice of you to go wherever you go, to allow Abraham to use you. And Esther says, when asked, it's not that I go somewhere and sleep, it's that when Abraham is present, I'm more. So Esther has a very keen sense of what her death experience will be like, because she knows that all it will mean is an abrupt releasing of any resistance and a immediate reorienting into the fullness of that which she is. Her Abraham experience gives her a very close understanding of what that is like. So having experienced us for so many years has completely removed Esther's concern or worry or misunderstanding about what her death experience will be like, because we're as dead as it gets.
But everything is energy, right?
So when you think of consciousness that is focused through you, this is the reason that we are so happy to have this conversation. Here in this physical body, as consciousness is flowing through you, sometimes you depart from the consciousness that flows through you and you hate someone. That's a true departure of the consciousness that flows through you. Sometimes, as the consciousness flows through you, you depart and don't like yourself, or you feel inadequate in some way. Those are departures from who you really are, you see. And so in the death experience, there's no departure. It's a reordering, it's a reminding. Jerry had an experience years ago, we've talked about it some, where he was in the back of a pickup truck with a man's children. The man was driving the truck. The man had no brakes. He told them he could control the truck through the gears. Jerry didn't really think he could, but his own children were in the back of the truck, so Jerry thought he must sort of kind of know what he was doing. But he didn't, and he was coming down a hill and had no brakes, and the gears, he couldn't make them work. The RPMs were too high. So he just ran the truck up the side of the mountain, which was the better choice of up or off the cliff, and the truck turned over on all of them. And Jerry lost consciousness. They all did. And so for a while, quite a while, Jerry was announcing to everyone, I'm no longer worried about death because I now understand what it's like. You're bipping along, speaking Spanish to children in the back of the truck, tutoring them. 1 minute you're fully conscious and then nothing. And when he told that story to us, we said that's nothing what the death experience is like. You had some temporary unconsciousness as you got bunked on the head. The death experience is super consciousness. That's when your true awarenesses of who you are and life come about, you see.
But isn't the source, if you will, isn't it energy?
Well, whether you want to call it energy or consciousness or thought, we think it's splitting hairs. In other words, what's the difference? When you say energy, do you mean something different than when you say consciousness?
No, they're
Do you
the
mean
same.
something different than when you say thought?
No, everything's energy,
So-
in my view. So, and because everything's energy, when we die and we have this spirit, which we call energy, I mean, that's just physics. Everything is energy. Everything has, quarks and electrons or
Well, how about
photons.
this? How about this? We'll answer your question precisely and to the degree that you've asked it. So, the consciousness that you know as you is like particles in every particle of everything that exists in this sea or soup that you call life. And you exist as much in that particle, as in that particle, as in that particle, as in that particle. The energy that is you is everywhere, not nowhere, everywhere. But the consciousness that is you is what focuses it into a coalescing of something that makes it something.
And does that focusing happen as Abraham as well?
Yes, it happens, of course. It happens. Think about that. That's how your earth came together to begin with. That's how you come together now.
So energy just kind of sticks together like glue, if you will, or energy patterns, if you will. And that's how it's maintained.
But because it is not matter, it
Right.
is energy. It's not sticking like glue. It's attracted like radio signals.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
So it's this physical stuff that has you hung up.
Yeah, it does. Okay.
Good conversation.
Thank you.
Satisfied for now?
Yeah.
Now what?
Hello. I'm so pleased to be here. I've traveled a very long way.
Unfortunately, he used up all your time.
I knew I would be next. I intended it. A few years ago, from a place of alignment, I attracted the most beautiful mate. The most beautiful mate. And we had some lovely years together. And about a few months ago, we discussed living together, and it was my desire to live together, and it was his desire to not to live together. And I used that as an excuse to get out of the vortex. And a few weeks ago, he ended the relationship. And in that moment, I sent forth the most powerful rocket of desire I have ever experienced. And that is to be with him again and to be married to him, which was news to me. I never knew I wanted that. And there are days when I'm in appreciation. There's days when I'm grateful for everything that we've had. There's days I'm in despair. And I'm not used to feeling so up and down and up and down. And I would love your input on this.
Well, the thing that is most uncomfortable about your current situation is that it feels to you like your happiness, your relationship with your vortex, is dependent upon what somebody else does. And you can't control that. We were talking with our friend a little earlier to be in that sort of a place that feels like a bind and to send a powerful rocket of desire with the ulterior motive of sending a rocket out to fix what's broken so that you can feel better.
Yeah.
Is just sort of a backwards approach to it. Now, it's easy for us to say and not always so easy for you to hear, but situations like this where you send those rockets forth create even better relationships for you.
Yeah.
And it's clear that something that you very much wanted from this relationship was something that he very much did not want. It's an interesting thing. What you feel as soothing your sense of insecurity, to him feels like a loss of freedom. And so it's sort of like he has to give up something he wants in order for you to get what you want when you play in the very narrow relationship field when it's just the two of you. But if instead you can step back and say, oh, well, this was just data collecting and this was just helping me through the course of the relationship to define what I really want in a relationship, and thank you very much for helping me define it. So I have created, speaking of you, I have created a relationship, and it's in my vortex of creation waiting for me, but your attention to this person who claims not to be it keeps you from going in the vortex too. You never will have a satisfying experience when you think that your vortex work is done to control the behavior of another so that you can feel better. In other words, it's still the same old thing. I need to control the circumstances and events so that I will feel better. And what it really comes down to, nobody ever likes this advice when we give it to them. They ask for it, but they never like it when we give it to them, is that you have two choices. You can be without this person and unhappy, or without this person and happy. And if you choose to be, because the third option isn't on the table. being drag him and you into the vortex and make him marry you. So when you say, I am determined to be happy, and further, I'm even more empowered because this data helped me decide more clearly what I want. This isn't a question about whether you're right or he's right, about how relationships should unfold. This is about you living enough life to know clearly what you want, and him helping you put it in a very clear way, and now the universe has already orchestrated that. The question is, how long are you going to use that relationship as your excuse not to go rendezvous with what you're really asking for?
It's when I think of him, I love every single aspect of him.
Well, maybe that's true and maybe it's not, but we all witnessed just now, you thought of him and went into the vortex, and then you thought of him and the vortex spit you out. Because thinking of him can put you in the vortex, and thinking of the absence of him can spit you out of the vortex.
Yeah.
But the thought of him is not very safe territory, is it?
No.
In other words, if you're determined to be in the vortex, and this is the thing that's hard to hear, because sometimes, in fact, really, really often, people want to know how to get into the vortex so that the vortex can work its magic and make something turn out the way they want it. And we say, you're misusing the vortex. You want to get in the vortex because it feels good in there, period. You want to get in there because now you're who you are, period. You want to get in there because that's where you belong, and if you get in there and learn to hang around in there consistently, then you'll start getting the inspiration to move in the direction of everything that you want. And oh, life is so fun when you're hanging around and moving around in the vortex.
I would like to ask also, when I do have thoughts of him, I know you said it's unsafe territory, but I'm reminded of him everywhere I look, music, everything, all the time.
Well, then you've got to find a way to make those thoughts work for you. And the fastest way to get there is, you were so good for me and I was so good for you, but the greatest gift you've given me is that you sharpened my awareness of who I really am and caused me to create. You see, what you're creating, you're not creating a relationship, you're creating you in a relationship. You're not creating money, you're creating you in a financial experience. In other words, you are the creator of you. So what you want to say to him as you think about him is, you were so helpful to me because you, beside the fun we had together, you helped me to clarify who I am and what I want, to the degree that now what's in my vortex is so much more evolved. And it would not be if it had not been for you. Thank you so much for the step along the way in my creation of me that you were. You see, when you get in the vortex, here's the value of just getting in there and hanging around just for the heck of it, just because we say so. Here's the value of it. Once you're consistently hanging around in there, your self-confidence comes back into its natural rhythm. Your sense of worthiness and well-being comes back into its natural rhythm. And all that's happened here is that he caused you to create a relationship that you have not yet lived. You've got to figure out how to find the vibrational essence of it and live it before the relationship can be yours, you see. You have not yet been, and this is true of almost everyone, you are not yet a vibrational match to the relationship of your dreams.
I know.
And this person who has just left is not a vibrational match to the relationship of your dreams. In other words, he didn't go because you're not lovely to be with, and he didn't really go because you scared him away. He went because he's not a match to the relationship that he helped you create. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
And so when you think of him, you want to say, thanks so much for all of it. And I'm so pleased with what we created for me and for you as a result of being together. And now I'm going to do my very best to give my undivided attention to whatever thoughts take me into that vibrational vicinity where the trail will unlight before me, where the rendezvous will begin. And we promise you, there'll be a time when you sat down, you began by talking about this delicious relationship, which lasted just seconds as you began because you went right to the lack of it. but there is something so much bigger in your future than anything that you've left behind. But you have to be in the vortex. You don't have to find your lover to know what we know, but you do have to be in the vortex. So we have some questions. Do you believe in the validity of the vortex?
Yes.
Are you appreciative of your boyfriend who helped you to create something even more wonderful in terms of a relationship?
Yes.
Do you think you have control of your own mind?
Yes.
Can you tell by the way you feel whether you're in or out of the vortex? Do you have some tricks in your bag of tricks that help you get into the vortex?
Yes.
Are you in the vortex some of every day?
Yes.
Can you tell when you're in the vicinity of it?
Yes.
Can you feel when you move away from it?
Yeah.
Can you feel when you move into it? Do you want to be in the vortex? Do you need that person to come back into your life in order to be in the vortex? Because if you do, you'll still be out of the vortex because that person does not match what's in your vortex. You've moved past that, way past that.
Well, it's going to be fantastic.
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much.
All right, Abraham, I'll go in the vortex. If once I get there, I'll get everything I want.
Hi. Well, first, thanks to everybody. Appreciation to Jerry and Esther and Abraham and the whole staff. I'm a little nervous. I had this list of questions, and I think I'm going to scratch it and just go from my heart. About a year ago, we spoke about my business. And there are so many things I love that are going on with my business, and I'm really proud of myself. I've been using the material in a way I've never used before, with real clarity and real depth, and I'm in the vortex a lot. But I feel like there's something else, or somewhere else. I get glimpses of somewhere else I want to go.
Now, you see, these are lovely words, and we hear them from a lot of people on a lot of different topics. But to us, we just want to translate what you just said. I can be in the vortex, and when I do, I feel good, even proud of myself. But I don't practice it enough to stay in there consistently. And so often I'm not in the vortex, and from that out of the vortex position, I would like to have a conversation with you about what's wrong with my business.
I know, I'm so funny, I know.
Well, it helps us because otherwise the entire seminar would just be go to the vortex, blah, 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 go to the vortex, blah, blah, blah. This is going to take a while. Go to the vortex, blah, 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 go to the vortex, blah, blah, blah. In other words, you know what to do, and any conversation about how it's not working or what might be wrong, that's all out of the vortex conversation.
Right.
The only conversation that is of value for any of you, and the only conversation that is of value for us to give any of you, is you must discover a more moment-to-moment awareness of your relationship with the vortex and do the work.
I get that. I do. So, you want me to do it right now?
Not really.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
So tell us, describe to us as best you can
Yes.
what your business that you've created that is inside the vortex looks like.
Oh, okay. Wow. I'm the best-selling author of 5 wonderful books that touch people, millions of people around the world. The work is unique, coming from my heart, but it's rooted in the work that I've done with Abraham over the last 10 years. I feel so pleased with myself. I love who I am. I love who I'm surrounded with and by. I love being in a book signing and people lining up and sitting next to my husband and watching people moved by this book and telling us stories about how this has changed their lives. And the reason it feels so good is I know I came here to be who I am and set that example for others, and that feels incredibly fantastic.
Can you feel how out of the vortex that perspective was?
I guess not. I'll be very honest, because
Well, now,
I don't know if it's because I'm nervous because I'm in the chair, but...
Well, let us tell you how that dialogue goes from inside the vortex.
Okay.
I love getting into sync with who I am, where clarity about all things pours through me. And I love knowing that the universal forces of law of attraction will naturally bring those who are ready for what I am offering to what I am offering. And I'm at ease in the perfect unfolding of all of that. Can you feel how much more striving and trying there was
Yes.
in the way you were explaining it? So, and how much angst there was, and how much wanting the recognition there was.
Yes.
This is what Esther came to realize. In other words, that wasn't anything that she ever wanted until someone else dangled it as a carrot. And as she followed that carrot, it led her right away from who she is and right out of the vortex.
Right.
And she thought, oh, this is just really, really something interesting to tune into source and write about the vortex. And then, in the process of that, get drawn right out of it.
Right.
You see.
Yes.
So, why do you want to be a best-selling author?
I ask myself that a lot, and
Well, then the answer should come easily.
yeah, well, okay, so I'm with 700 people, and I guess I'm just like everybody in that.
Wait,
Yes.
I guess I'm just like everybody is such the wrong reason for anything. In other words,
Yes.
here's this vortex, here's you, and here's this vortex, and everything you feel is about this relationship. And all that other stuff is off the track, you see.
Right.
Way, way, way off the track. So you want to be in the vortex. This is the conversation that when you step back and step back and step back, the reason that you want to be in the vortex is because I am source energy in a physical body. But I'm more source energy than I am physical body. And when I choose thoughts that mesh up with the broader part of me, now I'm in alignment. Now I'm tuned in, tapped in, turned on. Now I am thriving. That's it. That's the reason to be in the vortex. Why do you want to be in the vortex? So I'll be a millionaire? No. Because when I'm in the vortex, I'm secure. There's a comfort in it. The feeling of comfort is the feeling of clicking into place with who you are, you see. That's what you're reaching for. Everything that you want, no matter what it is because you think you will feel better in the having of it.
And that, I know that's true, yes. That's it.
You'll hear much more as we're moving forward.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Help's on the way.
As usual. Thank you. Originally, when I started this morning, I've sat in the hot seat a lot of times asking about my business, and you have answered business questions today in a more satisfying way than I can even express to you. And my businesses are thriving, and I'm so appreciative for every bit of help Abraham has ever given me. And I have 2 questions today, and the first one...
Do you know what our real help to you is?
Yes.
Whether you pick up a book and just, do you know what the only help that we can give you is?
Yes, it's that you are the vortex through which I allow my answers to come.
Pretty good.
Hey!
But what we were going to say is, as we stand where the larger part of you is, and hold the tone of that, the reverberation of that, the knowing of that. And then we speak to you or write to you, and you listen to the vibration of that which is us. In your willingness to listen long enough that it awakens the vibrational resonance of that, you come into alignment with you. In other words, all we do is beat the drum of your vibration and make it a little more obvious so that you can hear it. And once you tune yourself to it, then you're home free. That's the only help that we have. We stand in the vortex and beam your signal. But the finding it and the following of it and the aligning of it, that's all you're doing.
Thank I put together a list of everything I wanted in a man, and it was one of those lists that my girlfriends would say that's not even possible to find. And I found it and him, and I've never, I never had previously been interested in having children. I never wanted a baby. I always figured I would adopt. And ever since finding him, I've been feeling like, that would be really cool. That would be really great to have a baby. And if I give it too much thought, I'm like, that's just crazy. I have the most fantastic life, and that would be really
Wouldn't want to share that with anyone.
No. Right, why would I do that? I'm much more selfish than that, Abraham. Or if I think about being pregnant, before it was always this terrifying thing, and now I'm like, that might be really kind of cool. I might like that. I don't know. So I'm wondering where that's coming from. Is it just being in a vortex?
Well, what happens
Okay.
when you come into alignment with who you are? You come into alignment with everything that you've put there. We were talking earlier. Is it unsettling to you or to any of you? Is it unsettling to you, the idea that there are things in your vortex, some of which you put there even before you came into this body, and many of which you've put there incrementally, the coupling of which has created an unfolding? Is it unsettling to you that there may be things in your vortex of creation that you have put there that on many levels you do want, that you're not absolutely necessarily consciously aware of here and now? Is that unsettling to you?
It's exciting.
Does it give you a sense of loss of control, or does it make you realize that there is much more going on, much more well-being there and available to you than you have any conscious realization of or responsibility to understand? It sort of falls in the same category of, we don't see on your things to do today list, keep the earth spinning in its orbit either. We look at your list and we don't see, sun came up, check it off. In other words, you recognize that there are things that have been set into motion, you see. So now, as the thought is occurring to you about something that you've not considered before, that means that you're in the vortex and in the vicinity where you have clear view. Because from outside the vortex, it's, I don't have time for that. From outside the vortex, it's, I don't want to ruin my figure. From outside the vortex, it's, the responsibility might tie me down and bog me down. From outside the vortex, there are so many reasons why you might not want to selfishly give up some freedom to another. But from inside the vortex, where who you really are is, as you hang around in there and you start feeling impulses, just know that those impulses, you've heard us say it many, many times, you just didn't expect it to show up in that form, and we're not saying that there's anything coming around about that anytime soon. We're just saying to you that when you get inside the vortex, you have clearer view of who you really are and what you really want. And you can't come to this time-space reality and know what you know and not want to be an avenue through which others can come and experience the same brilliance and wonder and deliciousness, you see. When you know what you know, there is not a stronger impulse than to share it with others, you see. And there is not a more important one to share this understanding with than your own offspring, who will be the next generation and the next and the next and the next and the next.
Very good. I just have one more question. I heard you translating for someone whose son had recently transitioned into non-physical. Esther translated with the help of Abraham for him, and I had so much appreciation for it. And then one of my friends transitioned, and I felt his energy, and I received a direct message from him, but it didn't feel separate from myself at all. It felt like even though he was talking to me from a different perspective, it felt like it was just a bigger part of me. And just literally 2 minutes before I walked in here, I found out that my grandfather made his transition last night, and I got goosebumps, and I got a rush, and I would love to have that same connection with him. But my question really is that it doesn't feel separate from me or like a separate energy. It does feel unified.
Well, here's the thing. And you're undoubtedly tired of this answer. But when you are inside the vortex, you are not separate from any of that.
Right.
In other words, if you were torn up about it, if you were in despair about it, if it was something you'd been dreading, and someone were to translate the sentiments, it would feel like it was coming from someplace else. But when you're in vibrational sync with it, you have to remember that when somebody makes their transition, they reemerge into that which your inner being is. And when you're in sync with your inner being, it is not separate. That was one of the things that Esther noticed as she began receiving us. The power and the clarity of the thoughts that were pouring through her were undeniable to her, especially in the beginning, because it was such an unusual experience for her. But when you are in the moment translating, it does not feel, as you said, separate or apart. And Esther would say to Jerry, in fact, just now, as they walked up after the first segment, Jerry said, that just opened up and just kept going. That was the most powerful set of words and combination. He was just beside himself with enthusiasm. And Esther said, that's nice. That's nice. To her, it felt like talking about what I'm going to have for lunch.
Right.
Because when you know it, it's the freshness and the newness of it that makes it feel like it's maybe separate or apart from you. But we like it when it's familiar to be inside the vortex, and that's really what you're describing.
Yes. Anything else that you have for me? I love you so much.
Nothing that you do not have access to directly.
Our primary intent with this work is to connect with those who are attracting this information, and Esther and I are most appreciative of the role of your intentions in this joyous co-creative experience. For additional recordings, books, DVDs, catalogs, or to reserve your space at an Abraham-Hicks Law of Attraction workshop, please call area code 830-755-2299 or write to Abraham-Hicks Publications at Post Office Box 690070, San Antonio, Texas 78269. Also, for an immediate overview of our works and the wealth of free information available to you, visit our interactive website at www.abrahamhicks.com. All Abraham materials are copyrighted by Jerry and Esther Hicks.
Thank you. I could say that I've been blessed to be here today and to thank you, because 3 years ago I was in a very difficult situation, and by reading one of your books I was able to help myself and be now here in this place.
So the vibration of the book and your willingness to participate within it activated a resonance of well-being within you that brought about the soothing. Isn't that nice to know?
Yes.
In other words, it's always there for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So on my way to become a practitioner, a science of mind, I've been sifting through many books, and my years of experience as a healer before in a Catholic upbringing, I've been asking myself, what would be the best way to get to a higher level of consciousness to help others?
What is a higher level of consciousness anyway? What does that mean in terms of what we're talking about here? What does a higher level of consciousness mean? Less resistance.
Yes, exactly.
You can hold a cork under the water, but when you let go of it, it's going to bob back up, and that's the high level of consciousness. So when you stop practicing the thoughts that hold you away from your buoyancy, you bob.
Okay. Now, I understand completely, and I agree with that. And the question that brought me here was having an example as Jesus Christ of having this ministry in which he was able to cure every disease and illness.
Really? Now, do you know that?
Uh,
Because we don't know that, and we know everything.
okay.
Are you saying that there was never a person in so much resistance that the knowing of that one was not able to dissuade it?
I'm not understanding.
Jesus said, after one healing, "It is your faith that has made you whole."
Yes.
In other words, he was not willing to take credit for what
yes,
happened.
Yes, and
Which is what we just said to you, holding the vibration, but it is you moving into the vicinity of it. In other words, we promise you that this man that you hold in this very high position, and we do not quarrel with how you feel about him at all. We're just saying he was not asserting power into anyone's experience.
Yes,
he
I
was
understand that.
utilizing the laws of the universe in the same way that we're asking you to do it, holding the vision from inside the vortex, and then there is a greater probability of bringing someone into vibrational accord with their own well-being. But we were just jumping on you a bit about your words. He was able to heal everyone, because there were vibrational holdouts for him as well.
yes, yes, I understand. I understand that everyone has hope.
Do you know why we're after that? Do you know why we
Yes.
jumped in the middle of that?
Yes, yes.
Because when you hold someone up as a comparison about your work, and your view of them is full of flawed premises, then you shoot your own evolution in the foot.
Oh, okay.
So if you understand the laws of the universe as they are, and that he was not apart from them as is no one, and you work within the laws, consciously understanding them, then your successes will make sense to you, you see.
Okay. Now, the process on which he spent the 40 days fasting, separate from the whole different normal way of living, before
26 days.
36. Whatever amount of time he spent, is this process of the fasting process, enable him to become?
Whatever it takes you to distract yourself from resistance, go for it.
Okay.
In other words, it's hard to go into the vortex if you live in a village where they make fun of you when you meditate. We're just saying.
Yes. Yes.
If you don't try to make literal sense out of things like that, and instead you use your own experience of alignment or not in the moment, you'll find your own power as he did.
Okay. Now, jumping to another question that I have.
Do you understand the context in which we're playing this game with you? In other
Yes.
words, can you feel how we acknowledge the power of your being in as supreme a way as we acknowledge the power of the being of the one that you know as Jesus? And that as we're visiting with you here, we can feel that in your comparison, you're not bringing yourself into alignment with all that you are. You're letting what you think you know about another person get in the way of what you could know about you.
Yes. And I agree with you, because I think I have a lot of false premises because the way I was raised and all the beliefs and
The biggest
religion.
false premise that has come out of that whole wonderful movement is that he was something more special than you,
Yes.
and that you need him somehow in order to be all that you are. He stands now as this eternal being, knowing what he knows, expressing it in another way, wanting you all to let go of what that was and live with what you now are a vibrational match to. In other words, how could you take something that was written so long ago, not even by those who lived it. Translated again and again and again by all kinds of people who had economic motives for their translation. And now you try to live your life by it, when you have right here, right now, living, breathing guidance within you, responding to every single thought you think.
Yes.
That's guidance.
This is more of a curiosity question because I'm Hispanic. And I just wanted to know, if I ask you a question in Spanish, Abraham, would you be able to answer it in Spanish?
Yes, but not through Esther.
Oh, okay.
In other words, it doesn't matter what you express, we're receiving it vibrationally. A friend of Esther's did that some years ago, and it was unsettling to Esther and sort of brought her out of trance. But when she came out of trance, Josie said, well, Abraham did answer my question, but if you're wanting to understand if we are vibrationally communicating, mostly the answer is yes. You are receiving far more on a vibrational level, even as you sit in this room, than you are verbally or auditorily.
Yes, the question is because in some way, I would like to see someone channeling for the Hispanic community in the future. That was the main reason.
We choose you. But don't go to the desert.
Thank you.
My heart is really beating right now.
That's a good thing.
It is. It is. Okay. I'd like to say thank you to the Hicks and to you, Abraham. This is stuff I always knew deep down, and I was blessed enough to recognize it when it was in my face, thank goodness.
Perfectly stated.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to talk about menopause. I had to kind of let this thought go for a while because I wanted to talk to you about this. And then I thought, if I think about it, I'm going to be out of the vortex. I better just get out from thinking about it, and hopefully you would choose me. And again, I'm thankful for that. At times, there's different times in a woman's life, as you would know, that these emotions just come from God knows where, literally. And
oh, now wait.
Oh.
Because while we do agree that there is a biological evolution that takes place within everyone, not just women.
That's true.
We will not agree that your emotions are ever outside of your control, because we will not agree that you do not have the ability to focus. And in the same way, have you ever had and we are going to let you speak here, but we just want to lay a little bit of a basis here. Have you ever noticed that if you are on the verge of some physical discomfort, that your mental attitude tips it into more discomfort or less discomfort?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
so all that's happening is that during this time, while there is a heightened physical sensitivity, so that your emotions are more noted, still you have control of the way you feel.
Okay.
In the same way that we said to a woman who was suffering mightily from arthritis in her hips. Now that's sort of a menopause that keeps on giving. In other words, it was chronic and painful. And we said to her, if you can separate the physical pain from the emotional response, in other words, you can have pain and be afraid, or you can have pain and be hopeful. And the vibrational difference between fear and hope is a huge vibrational difference. Hope is nearly in the vortex. And when you're in the vortex, it doesn't matter what stage of your biological life you're in. When you're in the vortex, you're thriving, you see.
Yes.
Just don't argue for limitations. This is an overused, overrated, long exaggerated arguing for one's limitations that females would do well to let loose of.
Oh, man. I kind of thought it was some sort of mass, and sort of, yeah, hysteria, because you hear as you're growing up this, that, and the other, and my experience has been a lot less because I made a decision a long time ago, I'm different, that's not going to happen like that. And I have been able to, I get these like weird emotional, and I think of my poor dead dog or something, I get all weepy and all this, and I go, stop it, pull it together here, and then try to think of something happy, a trip or something.
Well,
and,
here's what we really think is at the basis of what you're talking about. You and everyone else are so supposed to be in the vortex. And the larger part of you so is. So when, for whatever reason, you focus yourself out of it, so something feels off, a little or a lot off, it feels terrible to you. It feels to you like something's really, really wrong. And because at many levels of your being, you recognize that something's really, really wrong, then you set out to validate it, to explain it, to sort of make the wrongness of it be justified with more facts. And that's what people do in a lot of different ways. And there's a big stream of thought consciousness that has sort of settled there. But it doesn't serve you. We would not, if we were standing in your physical shoes and we recognized we were out of the vortex, we would not spend one moment trying to figure out why we're out of the vortex. We would put our undivided attention upon figuring out how to get back in.
Into the vortex. Yes.
Because there's no gain in figuring it out. It's his fault, it's her fault, it's a biological fault, it's a flaw in female anatomy, it's an economic mistake by the government. In other words, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And every minute you spend trying to explain, and we want to go back so that you really, really hear it. The reason that you think you need to explain is because in your heart of hearts you can feel how off it is. It's so off that I'm not in the vortex that I need to spend a lifetime explaining what it's like.
Yeah.
Or you could just get in the vortex.
I see. As far as, I know we have so much control. This brain of ours is such a wonderful gift. I know I'll think, oh, I haven't had a hot flash in a while. And then as soon as I think that, I get one. So I'm trying to be happy about that fact, but then it seems to I just need to not think about it whatsoever.
Or relax into it, accept the biology of your body. Say, like the woman who has arthritis, and like the woman whose lover has just gone someplace else, I've got two choices. I can be experiencing this physical discomfort and be miserable emotionally about it, or I can be experiencing this physical discomfort and find a way of feeling better about it. In other words, because you can't snap your fingers in that moment of that experience and make it just go away. And what it will show you the power of the direction of your thought.
What I've been doing is I think, oh, this is actually a good thing. I'm burning calories with all this heat. I'm serious. That's what I've been using as a tool, because that's...
Well, you'd be better off to not think about it at all, because every subject's two subjects, what is not wanted on one end and what is wanted on the other. So in the midst of an awareness of what you don't want, trying to turn it into something that you do want just keeps the end of the stick that you don't want more active. You're much better off to just distract yourself with some other subject. Now, we know, people have said to us, Abraham, it's not like I'm thinking these thoughts, it's like these thoughts are thinking me. And we know that these physical sensations that come over you, you don't recognize any thought relevance to when they come and when they don't come. But it is our promise to you there is thought relevance. It is our promise to you that at any time there is discomfort, even in the midst of the natural biology called menopause, anytime you feel discomfort, you are in the midst of an out of the vortex thought every single time. Begin to notice that. Okay. Women want to claim to be more sensitive, and this is part of the process that makes them more sensitive. Use it to your advantage. But here, consider this. You'll like this. When Esther first began receiving us, she liked the idea of wisdom available to them. And in the very early stages, she thought, like many people would, that oh good, now I have someone to guide me away from danger. And it took her quite a while to understand we were calling her toward what she wants, not guiding her away from what she doesn't want. Seems like a subtle difference, but it's a very, very big difference. Can you feel the difference between making a plan to avoid something unwanted and making a plan in order to experience something fully wanted? There are a lot of people who are still really in the stance of guardedness, where they're trying to protect themselves from unwanted things. And this conversation about being in the vortex is an entirely different subject altogether. So once you come into the rhythm of who you really are, you'll begin to notice that everything about your experience, the people in traffic, even the way your own physical body responds to you, everything is directed by the vibration of your being and the thoughts you think. Let's just make it as loud and clear as we can. There is no moment in time when you are consciously awake that you are not feeling a precise indication of the mix of vibration between the larger part of you, that non-physical part of you, and the thought you're having in this moment. Every moment that you are consciously awake, that indicator is there. So if you've got some resistance going on and you don't know it, don't worry, it will get bigger. And if you still don't do something about it and bring yourself into alignment, don't worry, it will get bigger. So what happens is people commonly don't work to get into alignment. They don't take a subject and align it. They just avoid it, or they just ignore it. It just squirts out in another way and in another way and in another way until people come to factual conclusions because they've taken the statistics of the evidence that surrounds them, and they express things like, this is just the way it is for women. And we say, it's not just the way it is for women, it's just the way it is for some women, but it does not need to be that way. In other words, you have the option. You get to choose. If an organism, if a one-celled organism in its awareness of experience can ask for an improved experience, we think a woman should be able to do that too. But how many times would you like it to be different and then you just accept it that this is the way that it is? And we say, so future generations have to come forth, and the new generations that are coming forth are having whole different experiences. All kinds of things are changing for them, you see. And we have to tell you, generations before you found so much to fuss and worry about, had different experiences too. So you get to choose everything about your experience. And if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would accept and tolerate nothing that was not pleasing to us. But we wouldn't try to wrestle it to the ground either, because all that does is hold you in the vibration of it. Just accept that it can be different for you. And then don't talk about it with all of those who don't want it to be different for you, or who will convince you that it's just in your imagination and it's not really different for you. It doesn't take very much for a thought to be implanted. Sometimes there's a vibration active within you that you're not really aware of, but because of law of attraction, it brings more to it. And as it brings more to it, then it becomes more evident. As it becomes more evident, then you don't realize that there was a starting point that it would have been much easier for you to release it. Well, this is not one of these subjects. This is a subject that already has gained a great deal of momentum. And to break loose from a thought or a belief, a cultural belief, a societal belief, to break loose from a belief that has gained so much momentum takes some concentration. And in our view, it takes stepping back and looking at it from broader view. So if you will look at it from an energy standpoint rather than from a biological standpoint, if you'll look at it from an emotional standpoint rather than from a physical standpoint, you'll get your thoughts around this and you will have an easy experience.
Excellent. I actually think I've been real fortunate compared to, girl chat, what my friends talk about, my mother, of course, that's a big one. And I think I've had an easy thing of it, but I've been very, very blessed that things have gone as smooth as they have. It's an annoyance when something isn't not perfect, but
Well,
just...
from this conversation, there are two things that we sincerely desire for you to let go of.
Okay.
One is the discomfort of menopause, and the other is girl chat.
Okay.
Good time for a segment of refreshment.
Thank you, thank you.
You answered a question for me in Denver about my father who was dying, and it was very helpful, so I want to thank you for that. And I love you very much. So I'm wondering if there are some words you can offer for us to align with the vortex. Simple, reliable, powerful words. Which all of the words you offer are. For a simple one like me.
We've been holding back on you. So now we'll give you the final key. The thing about that is, it depends upon where you are in relationship to the vortex, what words you might offer will work for you. In other words, when you are on the brink of the vortex, when you're in a hopeful, playful place, then it's very easy. If you're in a place of despair, then the words that call you, in other words, when we're in the vortex calling you and you are far from it, you can't hear us. You're asking, what words could you say that could get yourself closer? And we say, the problem is you don't have access to conversation that's very far from where you are. That's why you just have to lean in the direction of the vortex and lean in the direction of the vortex. The most helpful thing that we can give you is an awareness that it exists and a reminder that you can get in it. So let's get really practical about this here and now. So tell us where you're at, and let's spend the rest of this day moving into the vortex from wherever you are. How's that? And let's make it quick, and let's get a lot of people in the chair.
Yes.
And let's just start with where you are with a brief statement, and then we'll just give you the best words we can find from where you are to get you into the vortex. How's that?
That is cool.
All right, so where are you? How far from the vortex are you?
The larger part of me is there. This part, let's say 6 out of 10.
Well, what?
My left foot?
What is the subject that you want to focus upon to assume you're out of the vortex position? Or was this just a theoretical question that you were asking? Do you consider yourself right now in the vortex?
No.
And what is the subject that is active within you that is keeping you from being there?
A generalized sense of disconnection.
Well, so what you just said is, I'm not in the vortex because I'm not in the vortex. But what are the indicators? How does it show up? What's the emotion, and what are the manifestational indicators? What's happening in your life that makes you know you're not in the vortex? Give us the emotional word. I feel ornery, I feel afraid, I feel fearful, I feel angry, I feel mad, I feel powerless, I feel...
Let's go with worthless.
They like it. So things are not turning out for me the way I want them to. I don't feel that I have my power. Embellish that worthless statement just for a moment.
I know what connection feels like, and it hurts when I don't feel that connection. And therefore, when I'm not connected, I feel like I am not living up to my potential.
So let's beat the drum of that just for a little bit and establish your position there. I know so much more than I am applying. I could be doing a lot better at this than I am. There are so many things that I've learned, and I've been in the vortex on so many occasions, and it's just stupid of me not to apply myself in a more deliberate way. I'm really mad at myself for not taking this bull by the horns and actually deliberately focusing. Is that pretty good statement of where you are? So from there, now we're just going to speak as if we are you. And move in the direction of the vortex. I'm unhappy with myself for my lack of discipline and my lack of applying myself. That's a good place to start. I can do better than I've been doing. I want to do better than I've been doing. Sometimes I'm mad at myself for not doing better. I'm going to cut that out because there's no value in being mad at myself. I would say the majority of my life I've done the best I could do from where I was. All that's happened to me lately is that I've gained some insight and I haven't been able to change my habits to keep up with my new insight. So I'm being extra hard on myself right now. All that's happening now, my resistance hasn't gotten greater. My awareness of what it's like in the vortex has gotten greater. So my resistance just feels worse. I'm not doing worse. I'm doing better. I'm actually doing better than I've ever done before. No one has ever asked me, and I'm not asking of myself, to get it all figured out all at once. I'm doing just fine. I'd like it to go faster. I'd like to apply myself a little bit more deliberately. I sense that I've been shooting myself in the foot because I've sort of been trying too hard. I get it now, and I've really heard here today, that to try to take action and make something happen before I've really gotten myself into a better feeling place is counterproductive. If I've been guilty of anything, it's guilty of wanting too much, wanting more than I'm in a vibrational place to allow. And now I know how to shift my vibration. I'll do better. I'm going to ease up on myself. I'm going to be freer and easier about this. I'm not going to badmouth myself or anyone so much anymore. I'm going to give myself a break. I'm a good guy. I've been diligent. I've been working at this. Things are getting better. I've got a handle on it. I know sources within me. I know sources calling me. I feel them often. I know I can do this. I'm looking forward to doing this. I like doing this. I'm pretty good at doing this. I'm going to keep after this. I'm going to get in the vortex on a regular basis. I like the idea of being in the vortex. I like the idea of tuning into who I really am. I can feel clarity flowing through me even now just with this conversation I'm having. I'm far from worthless. I'm valuable. I'm valuable to me and I'm valuable to others. And I love knowing about the vortex. Good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now what we're reaching for, let's get a series of that going on. So don't come forward unless you have an emotion that's already active. In other words, we want you to come poignantly with something that you're feeling about something, and we want you to express it briefly. Are you ready for that? The emotion I'm feeling, and it's about this.
Hi. Thank you for letting me come up. The emotion I'm feeling is discouragement. I've been doing this for a really long time, and it's like everything major in my life is sort of up in the air. Every role that I've known about myself or who I've been has sort of gone away, but nothing new.
All right,
has
so
come in.
discouragement is a good way, and you poked around at it pretty good there. So I feel discouraged, and discouragement is a pretty far down on the emotional scale, but what it always means is that there's a powerful wanting. So now you get the game that we're playing here. We're accepting where we are, speaking it from where we are, and then doing our best to use our words and the knowledge that we hold to move ourselves into a better feeling place. No longer asking circumstances and events to change so that we can observe the improved circumstances and feel better, but just using the power of our own mind to focus ourselves in closer proximity to the vortex where we understand everything that we want is. Yes?
Yes.
So I'm discouraged because the evidence that I see in my world is supporting some out of the vortex thought more than it is in the vortex thought. And I'm pretty mad at myself. Discouragement is a pretty good word because I think I've been trying. And when you try and don't get results, then discouragement is the logical way to feel. It's a cross between wanting and not believing that I can have what I want, wanting and not believing in myself. My discouragement is not about the laws of the universe. I believe that they are stable. And my discouragement is not about the existence of the vortex. I actually do accept its reality. My discouragement is not about the laws of the universe. I know they are valid. I believe that law of attraction is responding. My discouragement is about my ability to focus. But I shouldn't be discouraged, because when I get focused upon a train of thought, it's logical that law of attraction would bring me other thoughts like that. And I think that the reason for my discouragement is I've been trying to make too big of jumps. And as I try to make too big of a jump, there's a sort of backlash, because I haven't really moved my vibration far enough to get any strong footing. And so I'd like to move from discouragement into something that feels a little softer, but I think hope is too big of a jump to make. And from discouragement, it feels to me like the best jump that I can make is one of just getting more determined. It's sort of mixed with a little bit of anger. I'm really mad at myself, a little bit mad at the laws of the universe, sort of mad at Abraham, mad at the circumstances and events that surround me, mad that I'm not getting better results for the efforts that I've been putting forth. I believe in justice. I have always done my fair share. I've always done my fair share about everything. I always give everything 120%. And when I give something all of that effort, I expect to get better results. And it almost feels to me like the universe is working against me. It's like I've been doing the work, I've been trying really hard, and I'm not getting. Now, we're still beating the drum of where you are, but it's all right, because where you are is where you are, and there's something about speaking it and sort of making peace with it that is a little bit soothing and does cause it to release its grasp on you just a little bit. I'm really good at focusing, and I think that is the reason that I've been hanging around in discouragement as long as I have. Because I'm so good on focusing on what is that I have been unwittingly holding myself in a vibration that defies what I really want. And now my discouragement has been present long enough that I am really ready to begin letting go of it. I'm sick and tired of being discouraged. I want to be encouraged. And I am, when I step back a little bit, I'm encouraged by my knowledge that the universal forces exist. I'm encouraged by my knowledge that the vortex is a reality and that my solutions are already there. I'm encouraged by understanding that Abraham and others like Abraham are aware of who I really am, and that they keep seeing me as I am, whether I'm able to do so or not. I'm encouraged by the fact that I have tools like a book I can read, or a card deck that I can look through, or Jerry and Esther were speaking during their segment of refreshment about getting more of their favorite songs on their iPod and flowing through the music systems in their bus and in the house. I am good at focusing. I'm good at taking my life in my own hands. And I believe that if I keep moving in the direction that I have been moving in, that I will get movement. My discouragement is in part because I haven't had a lot of movement, but my discouragement, I believe, we're speaking for you, my discouragement, I believe, is mostly because I keep reaching into greater frontiers, and then I don't quite catch up before I reach again. I'm just reaching faster than I'm catching up, reaching faster than I'm catching up, reaching faster than I have been catching up, and now I'm in the process of catching up. My determination serves me because it causes me to keep reaching. My determination now to close that gap is going to serve me in a whole new way. This is information that I have not known before. I have never been as consciously aware of this gap. I have never been as consciously aware that this vibrational reality in this vortex of creation is present tense. I've never been so aware that it really is done. And I am now willing to let go more often of the discouraging awareness of what is, while I look hopefully into the vivid future for me in terms of manifestation, but present case scenario of what the source within me sees. I can do this. I'm good at this. I am a good focuser. I can get into the vortex. I can get in and it can spit me out, and I can get in and it can spit me out, and I can get in and it can spit me out, but I can get in. I like creating, and I like being good at things, and I am good at things. And the laws of the universe have my back. And the source is with me. So, did we move any mountains? No. Did energy move? Yes. Did you feel it? In other words, can't you feel that it's just conversation that feels better? So what is your emotion?
Fear.
Fear about?
Oh, I own a business, support my mother, my brother. Fear of the future, and will I be able to do it? And the fear has led to control, trying to control the outcome of things. And I'm tired.
Well, it is tiring. It is tiring to work against the laws of the universe, isn't it? And so much more invigorating to just get in sync with the natural flow of things. Also, do you understand that every negative emotion, this is true of, but we really want to point it at this subject of fear because fear is such a resistant state of vibrational beingness. What fear means, and only what fear means. Fear doesn't mean that there's something dangerous that you need to be afraid of. Fear means that thought that you're thinking while you feel the fear is a vibrational far cry from who you really are and what you really know and what you really want. In other words, fear is and only is, fear is, fear is, fear is, what fear is, what fear is, fear, fear, what fear is, what fear is. What fear is only an indication of your thought discordance, period. Now, many would say, well, yeah, but everybody's talking about it and everybody's worried about it. And we say, yeah, they're all doing it to themselves too. But fear is discord from your virtual reality, from your vortex of creation. Think about it. Do you have any idea in this upheaval in these economic times of what you all have put collectively and individually into your vortex of creation? It has grown so massively over the last year, more so than we have ever seen before in any period of time. This vortex has grown and is spinning so much more dramatically. So you could stand and do nothing about upgrading or improving your vibrational attitude or thought about something, and just the increase in momentum would be enough to cause some unsettling in your vibration. Did you hear this? The vortex has shifted so dramatically that you have to move your thoughts swiftly in order to keep up with the speed of the vortex, and if you don't, you're going to be uneasy. Ooh, did that explain a lot to you, you see? Mm-hmm. And so, now we'll speak from your perspective. I've been feeling quite a bit of fear relative to my business and relative to the things that I feel responsible for. It feels to me like I have a lot riding on my business and there's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. And if things don't go well for me, then they don't go well for quite a few people. And I feel quite a bit of burden in that. So that's sort of poking at it with a stick about where you are. I understand, not only from what I've been hearing here today, but I've been understanding this for a long time. I think I've understood it from an intuitive gut level. I've always tried to be an optimistic person because I've always understood that pessimistic thoughts lead to no good end. And so I've been one that people often look to for the more optimism. And now what I'm really kind of weary of is having to maintain an optimism that I don't really feel. It's easier to maintain optimism when you really feel it, but when you don't really feel it, and in these economic times it's difficult to really feel it, I think maybe that's what my weariness is about, is trying to sort of falsely maintain optimism when I really don't feel it. But now I'm understanding that there's something else afoot. I've been harboring a whole lot of thoughts that are just in vibrational discord with what I want. And I like the idea that during these troubling times that I might have even shored up my business even in more dramatic ways. I like the idea that there's even more that is ready for me. I like the idea that what I'm really feeling, that I'm translating as fear, is actually a more robust vortex of creation calling me in a stronger way, and me in my habit of thought just sort of rooted to the floor and not moving. I like recognizing that my fear isn't getting greater, the stream's just moving faster, and as I release my resistance, I'll start flowing with the stream. I can feel, even as I have this conversation with myself, that things are beginning to turn upward for me. I can feel that the worst is behind me and that it's going to start loosening up and getting better. I can feel that. I want to know it. I'm not sure that I know it. I am willing to hope it. I'm willing to hope that that is the case. I like knowing that I can be in a place of hope even before I don't have any physical evidence. I've known all of my life that people who stand in a place of hope, who don't need evidence to support their hope, they are the ones that soar right past hope and into great success. And I want to count myself as one of those people. I now proclaim to anyone who's listening that fear, when it comes up in me, I now understand what it is. It's not an omen of what is to come. It's an indicator right here, right now, of the bogus thought that I am offering, because it defies the thought that's in my vortex of creation. And I am going to learn day by day to opt and yield to the vibration of my greater knowing. Why would I cling to the fearful thoughts of what's going on when Source and all that is, and the very soul of me, my inner being, and all the cooperative components are over there in a different vibration? Why would I take one moment and cling to one of these fearful negative thoughts? I'm not going to do it anymore. It's just dumb.
Right on.
What more? What is the emotion?
It's a mixture of anger at myself. I trusted someone and I felt betrayed, and now I wish that I hadn't done that, so I feel like I have to forgive myself. And
it got complicated already, didn't it? Because it got complicated already, because as you're talking about, I was betrayed and I trusted someone and I should have known better, and now I need to forgive them, but it's hard to do. And we just want to say, oh, we love you so much, but we just want to say blah, 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 blah. All of that is real. It's all real and it's all valid, and you're not making any of it up, and we know what you're talking about. But in comparison with what you have access to, it's sort of like, why try to sort that out? How could you ever? In other words, a betrayal, isn't that an interesting thing? They did it on purpose. They didn't mean to do it. It was in my vibration. It was in their vibration. It rendezvoused. I create my own reality, so I actually did it to myself, and they were just a part of it. No, they had intention about it. They really meant to do it to me. They had an ulterior motive. There's a conspiracy against me. I wasn't born. I must have been bad in a past life. My mother should have taught me better. In other words, oh, it can get so tangled and
I've already been all those places.
So
I know. I don't want to go there
Or
anymore.
you can say, I'm mad and it doesn't feel good, and I feel deceived and it doesn't feel good, and I feel resentful and it doesn't feel good, and I can do something about it because I can think about something other than that. Right now, when I think about that, it takes me right there and it makes me livid. When I think about it, I just either feel mad, I either feel betrayed, I either feel deceived, I either feel resentful. It all stinks. I have the option of thinking some other thoughts. I don't have to think about that. I'll never sort it out. This is the thing that we really want you to hear. If I thought about that all day for the rest of my life, I will never be able to sort it out. It's too big of a price to pay for something that's never going to get me to where I want to be.
Yes.
The good news is, in the midst of all of that, I put a whole bunch of stuff into my vortex of creation.
I realize that.
And that's the direction that I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've been mad long enough. I want to ease up on myself. I'm tired of feeling this way. I can't go back and relive it. I can't go back and change anything. But I've got two choices. I can have been the liver of that and feel resentful for the rest of my bitter life, or I can have been the liver of that and have put something so magnificent in my vortex that one day I will stand there and revel in every piece of all of that. So I've decided I'm going to turn in the direction of my vortex. I'm going to get on some other subjects. There's so many things I can think about that I feel good about. Endless subjects that I feel good about. It's easy for me to feel good. I feel better just distracting myself by saying I can distract myself. I don't have to think about that. 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 I'm thinking about that thing I'm not thinking about, but but I feel stronger in knowing I don't have to think about it. I can think about other things. There's a lot of things in this world I can think about. I have a lot of interests. There are a lot of things that I really am interested in. There are a lot of things. In fact, I receive a lot of relief just by changing the subject on a regular basis. I really like to stay busy. When I'm busy, I feel better. I feel the relief of it. I'm going to do a better job of getting out there and finding relief. I'm going to pamper myself more. I'm going to go do more of the things that feel good to me. I'm getting in that vortex and I'm staying in there. I have the power to do that. I don't have to go back and suffer. The only reason I suffer is because I'm not in the vortex and I'm blaming it on that. Feel better?
I got it. Thank you.
What's the emotion?
Resentful.
Resentment? Yes?
Didn't expect this. It's kind of like senior citizen. I have 2 kids. They both have different religions, and they are very steeped in their religions. I live in a city that doesn't even know what I'm talking about. I have a couple friends, and I'm resentful that I can't share our beliefs. I'm resentful that as a senior citizen, I will be dependent on my kids, not financially, but if I put in a hospital or something. And I think I'm very frightened.
So you said your emotion is resentment, when really it's powerlessness. If you could snap your fingers and fix it right now, what would change? What would make it better in terms of action?
First of all, our kids allowing me to believe the way I want to believe.
Well, are they putting little picks in your ears and digging your beliefs out?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
That's because we were too smart-aleck for you. What we were saying to you is, in what possible way could they prevent you from believing what you believe?
Well, they can't do that because I could do it privately, but they're always telling me to change and be like them. They're always telling me to be different. And there's a resentment and to cause a certain alienation.
Well, it's a long story, isn't it? So someone has a set of beliefs and they believe that they're right. And they see you and your beliefs are different. And so they want you to believe the way they believe, and they think they would feel better if you just would.
Yeah.
And you are rather clear that your beliefs are serving you. And they are rather clear that their beliefs are serving them. And we want to ask you, is this world not big enough for plenty of varied beliefs? You thought it was when you decided to come. Not one of you said, let's go forth and convince the others that they are wrong. You all said, let's go and explore the contrast, and out of the contrast will come new ideas. Do you really believe that another's belief has power over you?
No, I don't. But I do know that when I'm with them, with the grandchildren, I must participate in their faith. And I'm criticized because I don't want to learn rote everything that's supposed to be there. And it's, again, I would rather spend my time meditating than learning the Catholic protocol and all of the scribes that go with it.
Do you fear that if you don't play the game the way they want you to play it, that they will withhold their love from you?
Yes.
Do you believe that the love that you are looking for comes through them, or do you think you have your own access to it?
I have my own access to it, but it's short-lived in the fact that I don't have many to share it with to strengthen me.
Well, here's the thing. You have done maybe the best job ever of laying out the basic discordant premise that so many people are living. And we're just going to speak it in more specific terms, and then we'll tell you what we would do about it if we were standing in your physical shoes.
Thank you.
So, the fun phrase that we often offer is, people are looking for love in all the wrong places. And where most people are looking for love is, if someone holds you as their object of attention, and they are pleased with what they see. So they reflect their pleasure back to you, and there's a certain pleasure that you receive in that. So without meaning to, you have set your own vibrational guidance aside, and you're using them as your indicator. So you say something, they respond, and you adjust what you say. You believe something, and they respond, so you adjust what they believe. So since there are a variety of people who want different things from you and who believe different things and want you to believe differently, as you try to cater to this one or to this one, you say you have children that have two different religions. In other words, it's enough to drive you crazy as you cater to this and to this and to this. Someone the other day said, "Abraham, my lover left and now I'm sad." And we said, "Oh, you're not sad because your lover left." And she said, "No, Abraham, my lover left and now I'm sad." And we said, "No, you're not sad because your lover left." And she said, "Let me be very clear. I was not sad, my lover left, now I'm sad. I'm sad because my lover left." And we said, "You are sad because you are vibrationally discordant from you. You're using your lover as your excuse to not be in alignment with who you are, but it's your not being in alignment with who you are that is causing the emotion that you are feeling." So we want to say to you, it feels to you that you are sad or disempowered or frustrated out of your mind because of the behavior, because of what others are doing. And we want to say to you, this is not because of them. It's because of your giving up your relationship with who you are. We promise you that if you are tuned in to the source within you, Esther, when she began receiving us, she could hardly wait to tell her parents about it. And we said, it's not really a very good idea. Because they're not going to understand. In fact, it will upset their world, and it wasn't a good idea. It did upset their world, you see.
Yes.
But over time, what Esther came to understand is that what her parents wanted most for her, more than all other things put together, was her happiness. And as Esther, little by little, found herself consciously aligned with who she really is, where her clarity and her power and her love and her kindness were emanating from her, no one who loves you has any contention about any of that, you see. So what's really happening is, in your concern that they will not approve, you're out of your vortex and therefore out there on the raw and ragged edge. And when you're out there on the raw and ragged edge, you attract raw and ragged edge kinds of experiences. Your children don't need you to believe as they believe, really, in order for them to be happy. And if they have placed your behavior as a necessary component of their happiness, they're never going to be happy because there's always going to be somebody else that they need to conform in some way before they can be happy.
It's a sense of belonging as a family.
Well, your religion has nothing to do with your sense of family. Your religion has nothing to do with your sense of alignment. Your religion has nothing to do with your God. It's such an interesting thing to watch. Your emotions are your religion in terms of, in other words, if you get tuned into who you are and you are radiating love and knowing who you are, they're not going to nitpick over what you're doing in terms of action. And if they do, we're here to announce to you there is not enough behavioral change in the world that could be offered from you to make any difference for them. This is the best example that we have ever had to say back to you, you've got to stop trying to control the uncontrollable. You cannot let your happiness be dependent upon pleasing someone else. It will drive you crazy. So if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would say, so they would say, want to come here and do such and such with us. Is that how it plays out?
Mm-hmm.
And we would say, no, thank you. And they would say, but don't you want to come along with us? And we would say, you know, I just want to curl up in some really comfortable place and make long lists of the things that I love about my family. I'm just going to get so into my feeling of appreciation of all of you. It's something that I haven't been doing for a while. I think I'm going to work on some picture albums, and I think I'm just going to come into my own self and just rampage my appreciation and love for all of you. Go have fun at church. And then do it. Don't feel guilty about not going. In other words, make a decision and line up with the decision. Get into your vortex, rampage of appreciation. Come into your power, come into your clarity. And when they come back, radiate your feeling of appreciation. You see, what's happening is, in their demands of you, you're out of the vortex and you're pushing against them. That's where the love is gone. It's not because you're not behaving the way they want you to behave. It's because you're pushing against what you think they're pushing against you. Mm-hmm. It's such an interesting thing. So this one wants this and this one wants this. And both of them could have exactly what they want, because the universe and all that is has the ability to give every one of you everything that you want. But you are looking over there and pushing against some of what they want. So you're not in tune with what you want. And they are looking at you and pushing against what you want, so they're not in tune with what they want. So neither one of you is in tune with what you want, so neither one of you is getting what you want, and both of you are blaming the other for not having what you want. So you just have to decide. I'm going to tune into who I am, and I'm going to love them whether they love me or not. You really know you've figured out the art of allowing when you are able to allow others when they're not allowing you. Okay. Very good. So they want you to do something you don't want to do, so you don't do it, and they're mad at you. And that's where your work begins. What are you going to do when they're mad at you? You're going to love them. You're going to love them anyway. You're going to understand them. You're going to get it that they just don't know. You're going to trust that they want to know. You're going to teach through the clarity of your example. You're going to tune in to all that you are. You're going to be who you really are. You're going to make lists of things that you appreciate about them. You're going to love them so completely and so purely that the only thing that they will ever feel from you, if they get anywhere in the vicinity of it, is love. And when you love completely and they don't get it, you just got to know they're not yet in the vicinity, but they're coming, because you know what? It's not just you that's calling them home to love. It's the source within them. It's what they're all reaching for, you see. This is a powerful thing that's happening with you. You're going to teach through the clarity of your example what alignment truly is, you see. And don't misunderstand us. There is alignment in the Catholic Church too. There is alignment to be found everywhere. We are not for a moment suggesting that they shouldn't be going where they're going. We're just saying, don't look for love in the wrong places. Look for love where it is. The larger part of you is love. And when you feel these strong emotions that you were demonstrating here today, it means you got some vibration going on that's not letting you be that loving being that is you see. We have enjoyed this interaction immensely. Thank you. It is so satisfying to visit with you, and we so appreciate your willingness to pour through the details of your life in this way. We want you to take from this gathering the predominant essence that we've been offering, that we're going to speak here briefly in just a few moments. We've all, but mostly you. We've all, but mostly you. We've all, but mostly you, been making way too much of all of this. Life is supposed to be simple and sweet and powerful and feel good to you. And when it doesn't, something is off. And the thing that is off every single time is not something that somebody else is doing. It's something that you're doing. If it feels off, it's off. But it can be fixed by you just by the redirecting of your thought. The source part of you, the larger part of you, has expanded dramatically during your lifetime in this physical body as a result of what you've been sifting through, and stands in such powerful appreciation, and poignant vibrational radiance that, knowing what you now know, it will not be possible for you not to feel the fullness of the love and appreciation that the source within you feels for you. You're queued up for it as a result of these hours that we've been spending together. And over the next few days, it is our desire that you just listen, but more importantly, feel for that resonance. You're queued up to a new pitch. And the vortex is spinning in a powerful way. And a little bit of effort at releasing resistant thoughts is going to serve you in a really powerful way. It is our expectation that you will receive more movement that will be visible in terms of manifestation in the next week than you've experienced in the last year. And if you will let the emotional relief be the prize that you're reaching for, not the manifestation, it will keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. There is great love here for you. And as always, we remain happily incomplete.
Hey. Thanks, folks. Wow, what a wonderful day. Welcome to our city. Say thank you to Esther one more time, would you please? Thanks, guys. See you downstream. Our primary intent with this work is to connect with those who are attracting this information, and Esther and I are most appreciative of the role of your intentions in this joyous co-creative experience. For additional recordings, books, DVDs, catalogs, or to reserve your space at an Abraham-Hicks Law of Attraction workshop, please call area code 830-755-2299 or write to Abraham-Hicks Publications at Post Office Box 690070, San Antonio, Texas, 78269. Also, for an immediate overview of our works and the wealth of free information available to you, visit our interactive website at www.abrahamhicks.com. All Abraham materials are copyrighted by Jerry and Esther Hicks.